I recognize the Honorable Lindsey Grant, member for St. Christopher 4.
Mr. Speaker, I rise this morning to give an account of my stewardship as the Minister responsible for tourism, international trade, industry, commerce, and consumer affairs. Mr. Speaker, I recognize that this morning the kakistocrats are conspicuously absent, but I didn't expect any better, really, because I recognize that they're showing solidarity, according to them, with the nonsense that was displayed in this House yesterday. But, Mr. Speaker, it gives me immense pleasure to stand in this honorable House in support of the budget for the year 2017. And as we continue, Mr. Speaker, to work and do the work for the people, the team unity government must provide and continue to be prudent and provide updates to the electorate who have placed their trust and their confidence in our ability to make positive changes in their lives. And I must dare say, Mr. Speaker, that we have been making a positive impact on so many lives in St. Kitts and Nevis. And, Mr. Speaker, I am immensely pleased with the performance of this government, immensely pleased. And I want to encourage my colleagues to continue their good work. As the theme suggests, Mr. Speaker, working together to accelerate growth and building resilience, we have been doing just that. And during my presentation, I will allude to that, Mr. Speaker. We are making sure in this government that we continue the upward trajectory of growth, while at the same time, Mr. Speaker, we set aside a little bit for the rainy day. Yes. We have shown that we will return surpluses on all of the major accounts, be it primary, be it current, be it overall. We have in surpluses on all the accounts. And they, on the other side yesterday, said nothing happening in this country. But what they want, negative? They want us to be in the red like they have led us for 20 years. We are showing this country that year after year, we did it last year, we come back and we do it again, giving surpluses to the country. And, Mr. Speaker, you see, when things are good, we give a little too. Yes. Because we've been so prudent over the last 2 years to record surpluses that we thought it important to show the hard-working civil servants that we're working with them too. And so we gave them a double salary, or we're giving them a double salary in a couple of days.
All the country in the world to do that.
And so we want to thank the hard-working civil servants, because it is because of their hard work we are able to perform in this manner, and so able to give back to them at the end of the year. Yes. And so, Mr. Speaker, for the second straight year, because of the performance of this team unity government, of course helped and buttressed by the civil servants, we have not burdened this country with any new taxes. And that is important. That is important. We will continue to have the necessary reforms, both at the Customs Department and the Inland Revenue, to ensure that we have the necessary efficiencies with the revenue agencies in this country. Because it is important to collect taxes too, because we need to pay for education, health, and those other services which are so important to the people of this country. And so, Mr. Speaker, I want to, in the context of the budget that we have here before us, to look at the two ministries that I have the honor and the privilege to lead. That is the Ministry of International Trade, Industry and Commerce and Tourism, and to highlight some achievements of 2016 and give an indication of what we intend to do come 2017. In the Ministry of Trade, Mr. Speaker, we have prepared already the draft instrument for the ratification of the WTO Trade Facilitation Agreement. And in a nutshell, this achievement will aid in the doing business environment in St. Kitts and Nevis. And you've heard us, Mr. Speaker, talk about doing business in St. Kitts and Nevis. And we've indicated to you and to this Parliament that we want to do better than we are presently doing. Because when one looks at the world index, we rank 134. And as far as I'm concerned, Mr. Speaker, that is not good enough for us. And so we need to improve upon that. And so as part of the process of ensuring that we improve on the doing business index, we have to ensure that this government undertakes a number of initiatives to ensure that we get a better score on that index. And so we have prepared a draft instrument for the ratification of the WTO Trade Facilitation Agreement. And we expect that it will bring mutual benefits, not only to the public sector, but also the private sector, Mr. Speaker. In addition, we expect to see an improvement in the competitive growth and development of the Federation as a result. When we look at the services industry, Mr. Speaker, we have established a services coalition because we are cognizant of the fact that the services sector, Mr. Speaker, is a major contributor to the economy. And it became critical to this government that we have a formal organization established in furtherance of the services industry. I must say, Mr. Speaker, there were attempts previously to set up one, but they failed over the years. And so as the new minister, it was decided that we move towards setting up this coalition with some alacrity. This, Mr. Speaker, will send a strong signal to our regional counterparts and the funding agencies that this team unity government and the people of the Federation are serious about further developing the services sector. Mr. Speaker, I can also inform this Honorable House that we have established and launched the National Manufacturing Competitiveness Council. And this initiative is intended to have oversight and implementation, monitoring and evaluation of the recommendations outlined in our national manufacturing strategy. Because we recognize, Mr. Speaker, the importance of the manufacturing industry to our economy. Because when we look at it very simply, Mr. Speaker, manufacturing accords about 8% of our GDP. And it provides in excess of 2,000 jobs, mainly women. And so it is of critical importance that we support, maintain, and grow the manufacturing sector in St. Kitts and Nevis. This must be sustained, Mr. Speaker, and further enhanced with a view to take advantage of the many trade agreements that St. Kitts and Nevis signed on to, and which will redound to the creation of more employment for citizens of this federation. And in an effort to continue to develop and maintain good relations, Mr. Speaker, my ministry and the manufacturing sector, we have made sure that we visited over the last 12 months, Mr. Speaker, every single manufacturing entity in St. Kitts and in Nevis. Never done before in the history of this country, Mr. Speaker. Every single manufacturing plant within the last 12 months was visited. And you may recall in the Prime Minister's budget address, the establishment and the launch of the council, the Competitiveness Council, was high on the agenda. And so today I am happy to report to this honorable House that under my leadership and my ministry, in collaboration with the Manufacturing Division of the Chamber of Industry and Commerce, we have delivered on our commitment to the people again on the team unity. Mr. Speaker, there's been a long, very long outstanding matter. And it is the partial scope agreement between Guyana, Brazil, and St. Kitts and Nevis. It has been there for the last, I believe, about 8 years. And so we have begun the engagement again with Brazil to make sure, Mr. Speaker, that in the very near future, we can bring this matter to fruition. Mr. Speaker, NED, which is the National Entrepreneurial Development Division, which is a part of the ministry, I consider it a critical component of the ministry. And why I consider it a critical component, Mr. Speaker, is because it deals with what I call small businesses, very small businesses. And there I consider the engine of growth in our society. And when we look at the activities for the year on the review, we have, during the period, Mr. Speaker, under the Small Business Development Act of 2009, we have received 119 new applications. And I want to stop there. You see, because, Mr. Speaker, the kakistocrats again said nothing happening. 119 new applications. What that means is 119 new entrepreneurs seeking out NED, seeking the support of this government because they see something good is happening in the country and they want to get on board right now. And so we have been pleased to be able to deal with those 119 new applications. And Mr. Speaker, they are spread out over a number of areas. For example, I'll just give you the highlights. In the construction services, 18 new applications. When we're talking about the mom and pop shops, the food and the small shops, 18 of those. When we look at the information communication technology sector, 9. And so it can go on. And it's spread also, I must say, Mr. Speaker, between males and females. And so, Mr. Speaker, our support for the small business is not only related to dealing with the applications and giving the necessary concessions. That department, NED, also is involved with ensuring not only that the new entrepreneurs are provided with the services of helping them to prepare business plans and proposals, etc., but they also help them in bookkeeping and other areas where, in the ordinary scheme of things, they would not get any help, Mr. Speaker. I also want to draw the attention of this Honorable House, Mr. Speaker, that NED also supports a number of joint ventures in St. Kitts and Nevis. For example, we collaborated with the Junior Achievement of St. Kitts and Nevis to host the annual Junior Achievement Trade Fair. Very important. And I want to big up the young entrepreneurs, because when we would have passed on and have gone, they're the ones who we are expecting to take up the mantle and drive new initiatives and drive new business opportunities in St. Kitts and Nevis. And so it is important that we engage the young people to more productive opportunities. We also, Mr. Speaker, collaborated with and held many workshops over the last 12 months. In fact, we partnered with the OAS to initiate the establishment of a small business development center in the Federation. And to this end, in August the 22nd and 23rd of 2016, we held consultations with key stakeholders with a view to ensuring that in the first quarter of 2017, we set up a small business development center to ensure that we help young, small entrepreneurs to be productive in St. Kitts and Nevis. Mr. Speaker, I want to just say a little bit about the St. Kitts and Nevis Bureau of Standards. This bureau is not well known because, as they would say, it's not anything really too sexy. But they do a tremendous amount of work in ensuring that the goods and the services that we consume are of the highest quality. In September, Mr. Speaker, of 2015, the St. Kitts and Nevis Bureau of Standards established the St. Kitts and Nevis first National Conformity Assessment Committee. And this government, formed by the people and of the people, has taken the initiative via the Ministry of Trade to provide a networking system that would build confidence in the consumption of goods and services. Very important that we have the confidence of the consuming public that what they consume is of the highest quality. And the overall objective will be to ensure that consumers receive goods and services that are commensurate with the value being requested and that are in conformity with the health and safety standards regionally and internationally. The St. Kitts Bureau of Standards provides a variety of analyses, such as E. coli and Salmonella, and the lab supports the Standard Food Compliance Program to monitor restaurants and food processing outlets to ensure that they are of the highest quality. And to ensure, Mr. Speaker, that St. Kitts and Nevis remains competitive, my ministry continues to partner with regional and international institutions to build capacity and enhance our infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, in 2016, the ministry was successful in securing grant funding to the amount of $198,791 to enhance the national quality infrastructure of St. Kitts and Nevis. And this grant will assist in the development of a quality management system that meets the international standard requirements. The St. Kitts and Nevis Bureau of Standards, Mr. Speaker, will be provided with the necessary technical training and capacity building to improve quality management practices and increase compliance with ISO IEC standard requirements. In addition, the ministry continues to facilitate other ministries in an effort to build capacity and to promote growth and development of the Federation. Mr. Speaker, in 2016 also, the ministry, we worked closely with the Ministry of Sustainable Development to secure $257,000 for enhancing the national statistical system of St. Kitts and Nevis. This system is aimed at facilitating and supporting the collection of statistical data and the compilation and dissemination of statistical information, and also to allow for training of Department of Statistics to improve their use and analysis of trade in services data. When we look, Mr. Speaker, under the Department of Consumer Affairs, we have a number of pieces of legislation which will come to this Parliament in 2017, Mr. Speaker. We have redrafted a new and modern Consumer Protection Bill 2017 to provide additional protection for consumers of goods and services in St. Kitts and Nevis. This has been completed. The bill will ensure that consumers' rights, Mr. Speaker, are protected, which will result in enhancing consumers' confidence when making a transaction. We have two other pieces of legislation, Mr. Speaker, and those will also come in 2017. But, Mr. Speaker, we will not bring those pieces of legislation without the enabling regulations. It is too often you see pieces of legislation come to Parliament, and they come to Parliament and they're passed in the Parliament, and the regulations are lagging. Case in point, the Trademark and Patents Act passed in this House in 2000, 16 years ago. Up to now, no regulations, 16 years later. And so it has caused that particular bit of legislation to be almost non-functional, 16 years later without regulations. And so for my part, I have decided that when legislation comes before the Parliament or under my hand, we must ensure that it provides the necessary enabling regulations to make sure that the Act is allowed to work smoothly. Mr. Speaker, we have increased the number of investigating officers within the Consumer Affairs Department, which has improved the level of vigilance within the marketplace and has increased the number of food items which we now can monitor. And this new strategy was designed to ensure that the government's policy regarding VAT relief and other concessions are passed on to the consumers in St. Kitts and Nevis. And I want to stop here a bit, Mr. Speaker, because it has been said for some time that, you know, we exempt VAT now from food and other items, and yet the prices of goods keep moving up. That is what I call rumors, Mr. Speaker, because I have the facts here before me. We have done again a report on prices of goods in the country, the last being September the 27th, 2016, just about 2 months ago. And I am pleased to say to you, Mr. Speaker, and this Honorable House, that the prices of goods are not in any rise. They have decreased. And I believe one of my colleagues yesterday pointed to the figure of the decrease overall of prices in the country. And so,
Central Bank verified that.
and the central bank has verified that. So this is not Team Unity saying it. It's Team Unity saying it, but also buttressed by the central bank. I'm not going behind the central bank figures. If the central bank said the price is gone down, we have to accept that based upon their own findings, independent of the Team Unity government. And I just want to point out a couple of things, Mr. Speaker. Look at this. Chicken drumstick, 42% decrease. Drumstick chicken, basic commodity, what the people in this country, 42%.
Wow.
Drumstick, wings down by 14%. Tomato ketchup down 16%. Under this government. And because we were prudent and wise and gave our commitment that we were going to remove that. And having removed that, we see the results of removing the VAT.
Very good return.
I don't really go supermarket, you know. My wife to go for me. So some of these things I don't even know. These goods. But look at it.
I could tell the saltfish gone down.
See, the Prime Minister go shop for his saltfish, so he could tell me that saltfish gone down. Spaghetti gone down 27%. Look at it. I mean, and we have done, you know, Mr. Speaker, we haven't just done one supermarket. We've done all the supermarkets in the country. Because when some gone on 27%, some gone on 50%. So we want to thank, you know, to also the supermarkets and the business houses for ensuring that they pass on the savings to the consumers. Because we're not passing on this, we're not reducing VAT to make the profit greater for the supermarkets. We took off the VAT to ensure that the ordinary man in St. Kitts and Nevis benefits from it, because that is what Team Unity is about, spreading the wealth and the joy. Fair share for all. And so, Mr. Speaker, we think that the VAT being removed in April, I think, of 2015 has redounded to the benefit of the consumers in this country. Mr. Speaker, I want to, before I get off of that, to on the trade, just to say, Mr. Speaker, that when one looks at the draft estimates under the capital projects under the Ministry of Trade, we are just doing one capital project, Mr. Speaker. And it really amounts not to a vast amount of money, but somewhere in the region of $200,000, where we are seeking, Mr. Speaker, to renovate the premises where we are presently housed, and to bring all the different divisions of the Ministry of Trade under one roof, except the Bureau of Standards. And so by the end of 2017, all of the entities on the trade will be housed there, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, that is what I wish to say for the Ministry of Trade, Industry, Commerce, and Consumer Affairs. I want, Mr. Speaker, to begin dealing with the matters of tourism. But before I get to that, Mr. Speaker, I want to make two observations, I believe. The first observation would be, Mr. Speaker, is that I have been charged with the responsibility of heading up and having oversight of the Frigate Bay Development Corporation. And Mr. Speaker, I would like this Honorable House to know that there has not been any accounts done by the Frigate Bay Development Corporation since 2006. So we have been running a corporation for 9 years without accounts. That is the state of play at Frigate Bay. But Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to say to you that I have in my hands here 3 sets of accounts from Frigate Bay, which I will lay on the table of this Parliament very shortly when I've given my colleagues the opportunity to have had a look. So we have gone and we have done accounts. We have 2007, 2008, and 2009. And I would like to report to this Honorable House that we are in the process of doing 10, 11, 12, and 13, 14, 15. So before the end of 2017, we will be pretty much up to date with the accounts at Frigate, so that people of the country can peruse and see the state of play.
Which years is the outstanding?
From since 2006, they haven't produced any. 2006, 9 years ago. So we are getting everything up to date. Because this government is a transparent government. This government believes in accountability to the people of the country whom we are put here to serve. And so, very shortly, they'll be laid on the table of the Parliament, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, the other point I want to note is that I sat here yesterday and I heard a lot of rah, rah over on the other side. And part of what you heard coming from the other side was that some people over here getting double salary and all kind of thing you're hearing. And some people over here getting legal fees for this and that. And the Attorney General had to get up yesterday and inform the court that nothing was further from the truth. But you see, some people like to talk, you know. And when they talk, they forget that facts and figures and documents don't lie. Because you heard it from the honorable member from number 2 yesterday. Making them out big as usual, rah, rah, rah. And I want to say in this honorable court, you know, House, Mr. Speaker, in this honorable House, that I wasn't going to say anything about it. But 20 years ago, I dated myself. 20 years ago, in 1995, I was then the lawyer for the Development Bank. 20 years ago. The government changed in 1995, June the 3rd, I believe, or July, whichever one it was. And within the first week of the change of government in 1995, I get a letter. First week. And who this letter is from? I get a letter from a fellow who happens to be my cousin. He was then the chairman. What you say him? I think he named Edby. Chairman of the Development Bank, my cousin. Within a week of the government changing, I get a letter. Well, I want to know what this letter was about, because he's a gentleman whom my grandmother raised with my father. Raised him, fed him, clothed him. But within a week of the change of government, I get a letter. The man ain't even had the decency to give me a call. He sent me a letter. Well, fine, no problem. What was the letter about? The letter boy says, I was then fired as the lawyer for the development bank. So I kindly wrote him back a letter and said to him, look, I have a lien on all the files until I'm paid. So he sends 2 lawyers to my chambers. The honorable member for number 2 and her brother came to my chambers.
She was in government then?
She wasn't. 95, no, she wasn't in government at that time. She came to my chambers, the 2 of them, to ask me for the files. Well, I said to them, you can't get the files unless I'm paid, you know that. This is my bill, is it reasonable? They say it's reasonable, but we want a reduction. Well, they're colleagues of mine in law. I reduced the fee for them by half, I think it was, and gave them all the files and they went along. 20 years later, who is the lawyer for development bank? For the last 15, 10 years, whatever it is. The honorable member for number 2. But I want to say what I have in my hand. I'm going to tell you what I have in my hand. Because if these kind of fees they're getting, I want to go back and practice law. Because I know these weren't the fees in them days. I have the fees paid to Bryant and Libert between the period 2010 to 2014.
You got my attention, boy.
You got your attention? they must open them out. In 2010, collected 156,000. In 2011, they collected 546,000. In 2012, 1,016,000 in 1 year. In 2013, 558,000. In 2014, 555,000. In 2015, 127, for a grand total of 2.9 million over the 4 years. Your family. And had the gall to get up in this parliament here and talk about who getting money over here. $2.9 million of the people's money.
Number 2.
$2.9 million. Tell them when they're talking, I mean, they must talk easy.
There was some other special payments.
And this ain't even all. But I ain't have no time to waste on them. If they get that 2.9 million, take your 2.9 million and hush them out. Don't talk about people over here.
From number 2?
Yeah? Your family from number 2. Yeah. But it goes further. You see? Because this government is a good government. The government changed in February, sorry. And all done in July. She still getting money. Well, maybe she could come down like the one from yesterday to say she's old. That is all I want to say, Mr. Speaker. Because when they're talking, let them don't open them out.
I would request a copy of that.
You certainly can get, Mr. Speaker. We'll get your copy, Mr. Speaker. And I'm not even going into the many other things, because that's not what we're here for.
Don't worry, I will go into it.
I leave that to my colleague to go into. I want to get on to the business of the people in tourism. And, Mr. Speaker, I can only go by results. I am results-oriented. I go by results.
Yes, that's correct.
Last year, 2015, we break all the records. The most passengers ever in the country. Record broken. Last year, we break a record, the most ships ever in the country. Record broken. And I'm pleased to tell you, Mr. Speaker, this year, we're breaking records again. 1.1 million passengers for this year.
They can't be
1.1 million passengers.
Can't deal with it.
And the most ships ever. And Mr. Speaker, don't take it from me.
And nothing happening.
Nothing happening.
3 ships in the port. Nothing happening.
Nothing happening. This week alone, from the 4th the 4th to the 10th, this week alone, 18 ships. 18 ships. I met a taxi man on the road, I think it was there before. He said, Lord Grant, ease up the ships, them man, I'm tired. Ease up the ship, too much. Too much.
Never call another taxi.
I said, man, a lot of people here waiting to just give the job to somebody else if you're tired. Just this, well, the 4th to the 10th, 46,000 passengers alone this week. This week, 46,000 passengers.
And nothing happening.
Nothing happening.
For them.
1, 2, 3, Thursday. What today is? Friday?
Yeah.
Yesterday, 4 ships alone. Yesterday.
And they see them and nothing happening. These are bad people.
Mr. Speaker, this government goes on records. We don't go and just talk. We produce the records for you. And so, Mr. Speaker, this team unity government continues to work in the tourism sector, because you would appreciate that tourism is our primary economic driver. And so it produces significant benefits to the people in the country. And not only do visitors spend money in our local businesses, our shops, our restaurants, attraction tours, we are also working to assist our people who earn their money by working in the tourism sector, to have more opportunities and to improve their standard of living through training and human resource development. And I want to stop there, but you see, because, Mr. Speaker, we're not just talking about the fact that we're bringing in a lot of people into the country, they're spending a lot of money. No, we're not only about that. Because this government is about building capacity of its people. And so while we're bringing in the ships, while we're bringing in the passengers, at the same time, we're training our people in the industry. And so this year alone, between August and October of this year, we trained 662 people on the front line. Whether they were in the restaurants, the travel agencies, the hotels, 662 people trained by this government to make sure that we are at a standard that is of the highest quality and producing the types of services is required in this industry. And so, Mr. Speaker, we diligently continue to work the industry. But we have faced a number of challenges over the last 12 months. For example, Mr. Speaker, the vote for Brexit. That is, of course, a concern for us, because it means that the pound has devalued, and once the pound has devalued, it impacts upon our European traveler.
What do you mean by Brexit? Tell the people.
My colleagues, I must tell the people about the Brexit. Yes, I think I should. And basically, Mr. Speaker, it's where the United Kingdom has decided to leave the European Union. And as a consequence of that, the marketplace reacted, and the pound is now at a lower value than it was a couple of months ago. And so this has impacted us, of course. We have had a challenge, Mr. Speaker, because of the Zika virus, where persons who had forward and onward booking to come to not only St. Kitts and Nevis, but other destinations in the region, then did not come. And so this has impacted on us. Critically also, the United States general elections, that also has created a challenge for us. And so those challenges we've had to deal with in an ongoing scenario. But, Mr. Speaker, despite the challenges that we face, there are a number of very important opportunities that we need to avail ourselves to. But before I go to that, Mr. Speaker, I just want to touch on something which I don't want to forget, and to just give this Honorable House an indication as to what the cruise industry does for us in terms of the economic impact, which is very important. I have in my hand, Mr. Speaker, the BREA report, B-R-E-A report, which is the Business Research and Economic Advisors report, and it's a report on the economic contribution of cruise tourism destination to economies. And it analyzes the contribution of cruise to 35 jurisdictions, including St. Kitts and Nevis. And when I look on page 3, Mr. Speaker, of the document, it shows you here that the contribution of cruise to St. Kitts and Nevis is $84.3 million US. So over $200 million those ships bring to us in terms of the impact on this economy. They also tell you the total employment within the industry, 1,293 total employment. They also give you the total employee wage income that arises from cruise, and it shows you it is some 11.2 million US dollars. Very significant figures, Mr. Speaker. I want also to alert us, Mr. Speaker, that St. Kitts and Nevis is in a sweet spot. We are not we're the third best performing port out of 35 jurisdictions. St. Martin is number 1. And just to show you the kind of money that St. Martin will get as the number 1 port, is important to have a comparison. St. Martin, number 1 port, $422.9 million US into the economy. Very significant numbers. And so, Mr. Speaker, I say that because it is important for us to understand, and that is why my colleague, the Honorable Minister from number 1, is or has unveiled the fact that the second cruise pier will be well on its way in 2017. And I want to thank my colleague for ensuring that come 2017, the pier is built and be ready for the cruise season in 2018. Because I would like to tell you, Mr. Speaker, that, you see, believe it or not, we have been turning away some ships. Believe it or not. Too many. Because there are certain ships, and it is a fact, there are certain ships, Mr. Speaker, do not want to come to St. Kitts or Nevis if they have to dock at the commercial pier. So when we have 2 ships at the Port Zante, and they want to come, and there's no room, we have to turn them away. So we have lost a fair amount because we have lack of berthing facility at the moment. But I trust and pray that come cruise season 2018, my colleague will then hand over to the government and the people of St. Kitts and Nevis a brand new berthing facility. The PM will do that in conjunction with you. Okay, good, good. So I'm happy that my colleagues have seen the benefit of it, and that we will be able then, at any particular time after, hopefully, this cruise season 2018, to welcome to St. Kitts 4 and 5 cruise ships in good order. So, Mr. Speaker, but then we have a bit of good news, and I know I need to share it. The opening of Park Hyatt coming next year, which is good news for St. Kitts and Nevis. Very good. As a matter of fact, it's very good news. Very, very good news. And why is it good news? It's good news because the Park Hyatt has put their confidence and their trust in St. Kitts and Nevis to place their very significant brand in St. Kitts and Nevis, because Park Hyatt brand is not an easy brand. As a matter of fact, it is the first Park Hyatt coming to the region. You see how big that is? The first Park Hyatt in the region. And so it is a significant moment for us that Park Hyatt is here. And the beauty about Park Hyatt being here is not just because they're coming and they're 5-star and what they can bring to our shores, but the fact is that they are willing to work in a significant way with the people of St. Kitts and Nevis and ensure that our people come first in the employment line, bringing over 300 new jobs to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. Very, very important, Mr. Speaker. And so we are happy that coming very shortly would be the Park Hyatt. Right now, Mr. Speaker, I'm advised that over 800 people employed. And the kakistocrats talking about nothing happening in this country. Nothing happening in the country, 800 people employed. And the beauty about the Park Hyatt again also, Mr. Speaker, is that they have toured several farms, and the Minister of Agriculture could speak to that. Toured several farms across St. Kitts and Nevis. You know, poultry farms, pig farms, vegetable farms. Yes. People are now gearing up because they see the economic opportunity that's going to be available. Right. I mean, you should see the farmers down in my area start getting ready, man. All right. Well, they're plowing up the ground because they're excited about the Park Hyatt coming, because they know that it is going to bring them immense opportunities. And this government is a government of opportunities. Yes, 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 yes. This government is a government that ensures that the people are looked after first. That is what we're here for. Our mandate is to ensure that we get a better standard of living and life for the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. When I wake up in the morning, I'm thinking about the people. When I go and sleep at night, I'm thinking about the people. And all during the course of the day. I don't even know how the Prime Minister sleeps sometimes, because he always thinking about them. He hardly sleep. If I WhatsApp in 3 o'clock in the morning, he up. What are you doing up? He thinking about the people. And that's what this government is about. The government, the people have reposed their trust and their confidence in team unity. And it's not going to be easy, Mr. Speaker. But when we do it, we're going to do it right. Just like the peer, they said they're arguing, oh, it takes so long. We're dotting the I's and we're crossing the T's.
And they couldn't deliver it.
And they couldn't deliver it. And in less than 2 years, we're delivering it to the people. God bless Team Unity and the people of the country. Mr. Speaker, you know, look at this. Park Hyatt, excuse me, it's not open yet, but already named one of the most anticipated new hotel openings for the year by the New York Times and Forbes magazine. You know, two of the most leading publications in the world. Look at this. St. Kitts and Nevis ranked number 9 on a list of top 10 emerging luxury destinations for 2016. The only Caribbean island on that list, but nothing happening in St. Kitts. Number 15 of the top 21 destinations for 2016 by Rob Report. One of just 2 Caribbean islands on this list. Things happening in this country. The Wall Street Journal recently ranked St. Kitts 9 on the list of 10 places across the world where to vacation in 2017. Wall Street Journal, something is happening in St. Kitts and Nevis. In addition to that, US News and World at number 1 on the list of best Caribbean honeymoons, number 1. And number 2 on the list of the best beach honeymoon destinations in the world. Nothing happening in St. Kitts, eh? Number 5 on the list of best Caribbean family vacations. Number 7 on the list of best islands in the world. And we could go on and on and on and on and on with the accolades, Mr. Speaker. Excuse me. Mr. Speaker, in terms of traveling also, we have to look at the culinary section. Our very own Chef Alex Duggins highlighted our culinary talents in New York this year, cooking alongside some of the best chefs in the world at Survey's Summer Cookout in New York City. We also, Mr. Speaker, have begun to develop a partnership with lifestyle brand Tommy Bahama. They brought out a line of cologne and perfume, and it smells good. As a matter of fact, it's a hit. You should get one for the Christmas, Mr. Speaker. You need to get one. It's the biggest perfume and cologne on the market, branded with St. Kitts. And so these, along with Park Island, so are helping us because we are a small country, Mr. Speaker. We don't have the resources to market St. Kitts and Nevis as we wish to market it. I would wish the Prime Minister would give me a little bit more money as Minister of Finance, because I need some more money to market.
Next year.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. But the beauty about a brand like the Park Hyatt, they're going to bring their own marketing to be on St. Kitts and Nevis. So we are really going to be helped somewhat by their own marketing powerhouse abilities. So we're going to be able to piggyback on them in terms of our brand awareness for St. Kitts and Nevis. So that is good. Mr. Speaker, in Canada, because you would appreciate the Northeast USA and Canada, North America, this is our main source market. 70% of our tourists come from that area. And so we have decided with the little that we have to focus our attention on some key market areas in the USA, in Northeast USA. We have done some work also, Mr. Speaker, in Canada to make sure that we reach the clientele and the demographic that we are looking for in Canada. And so we did some stuff in a place called Oakville in Ontario, Mr. Speaker, sometime earlier this year. Mr. Speaker, in terms of our airlift from North America, our negotiations with United Airlines have resulted in expansion of the non-stop Saturday service from Newark Liberty International Airport, a key northeast gateway. United Airlines, Mr. Speaker, is now scheduled to operate 50% more flights. And I stop here. Because when we initially negotiated with them, they were going to do an 18-week rotation from December. The flight has been doing so well, according to United Airlines, that they now put on 50% more flights. And they're now looking to put on a flight on Wednesday, which is midweek, Mr. Speaker. And so we are hopeful that that will also help to support and grow our arrivals from the Northeast, Mr. Speaker. Delta Airlines, Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to report that our success continues. As a result of the code-share agreement with Seaborne, our federation will be listed in the carrier's reservation system as having connecting Delta services daily. And so that too, again, is a plus for us, Mr. Speaker. And this is in addition to the existing non-stop service and flight from out of Atlanta. And I must say, Mr. Speaker, Delta will be adding a Wednesday flight. And that Wednesday flight, Mr. Speaker, will start from December the 17th to January the 7th. I think it's a 3-week window. They are adding a Wednesday flight, Delta out of Atlanta. These, of course, Mr. Speaker, are still in consonant with the daily flights out of Miami. Mr. Speaker, last winter, we had negotiated with Air Canada vacations. We have our challenges in Canada. But what I would like to say is now that the Canadian market, Mr. Speaker, is growing slowly, but it's growing. And the Air Canada vacations has now decided to use a larger aircraft because of the positive results they have been seeing. And so whereas they were using an A319, which is a 120-seater, they're now going to, for this season, Mr. Speaker, move to an A320, which is 146 seats. I would like to report, Mr. Speaker, that the average load factor coming out on Air Canada is 92.6%, very high. 92.6%, that's for December to the end of February. Excellent results. And that's against 89.3%, which we had over the corresponding period last year. In order, Mr. Speaker, to grow the Canadian market, we've also entered into some partnerships, golf partnerships, with Gulf Ontario and the National Golf Course Association of Ontario. In fact, Mr. Speaker, this has, I believe, has increased some awareness about St. Kitts, because we have seen a bit of uptake coming from the Canadian marketplace. Mr. Speaker, in terms of regional airlift, this government has officially granted Winair a St. Kitts and Nevis airline designation. And this will allow the carrier to originate, Mr. Speaker, and terminate flights from St. Kitts and Nevis to a third-party country in the region. And it is clear, Mr. Speaker, that this designation will add options for Caribbean nationals to get to our federation, while at the same time offering our people another option for traveling within the region. Mr. Speaker, in addition to our success in terms of increasing airlift, we have simultaneously been working to expand our cruise tourism sector. Most major cruise lines now include the Federation as a port of call in the itineraries, and we have year-round visits and multiple vessels with cruise lines hailing from a diverse range of countries. And while we did not reach, Mr. Speaker, the 1 million passenger mark, which we expected that we would have achieved last year, we didn't reach that because of cancellations for weather and ship mechanical issues. We reached a total, Mr. Speaker, of 913,000 passengers. So we fell short by some, if my maths is correct, something like 87,000 passengers we fell short by. This year, Mr. Speaker, we are expected to break that 1 million passenger mark and get 1.1 million passengers for the 2016-2017 season. In addition, we welcome 2 of the world's largest cruise vessels on the same day. That's a first for us, the Oasis of the Seas and the Allure of the Seas, which is testament, Mr. Speaker, to our destination and our tourism facilities. Mr. Speaker, to ensure visitor satisfaction with their experience on island, we are continuing our conduct of customer service training for all our nationals and individuals in the front line of the industry. Very important. And these individuals include our traditional providers, as well as our non-traditional service providers, such as our retail operators. the Alarup vendors, the beach vendors, the beach bar operators, the water sports operators, the primate petting, the craft vendors, the hay braiders. In addition to this, we're doing ongoing training as we plan to host training again for our frontline employees in the restaurant and accommodation sector. Mr. Speaker, we've recently launched the Heart of St. Kitts program to engage local stakeholders in a sustainability commitment and to simultaneously provide a mechanism for visitors to give back to the destination. Mr. Speaker, for 2017, we are planning a resident satisfaction survey to collect information about how people view our tourism industry and how they see themselves impacted by it. To these same ends, Mr. Speaker, we are continuing to develop our tourism education program for our youth to ensure their awareness of the benefits and the opportunities afforded to them through tourism sector and to help them become future leaders in the industry. Mr. Speaker, you know we started a pilot program in 4 schools and we are continuing that generally to give awareness to the students at a very early age the importance of the industry to St. Kitts and Nevis. Mr. Speaker, we have continued to develop our golf tourism offerings. And so as a result, our partnership with Links Magazine, which we forged last year, we have successfully hosted teams that competed in the Couples Invitation, which was held in May 2016, and there have been further development of our partnership in 2017. Mr. Speaker, to raise the profile of our destination in the UK golf market, we partnered with Barmy Army Golf, representing the first strategic golf partnership in St. Kitts in the UK. December 31st, 2016 to January 7, 2017, we will be hosting our first junior golf clinic with Golf Ontario, who has selected their top players to attend this clinic in St. Kitts. Mr. Speaker, in terms of our yachting industry, our federation was the setting for the Caribbean Crew Fest in January 2016, as well as the second Pendennis Rendezvous in April of 2016. We have had a record-breaking year, Mr. Speaker, for super yachts. Super yacht traffic is those yachts that are over like 200 feet. And we have had tremendous growth in that area, Mr. Speaker. Our federation welcomed over 200 yachts to its waters. And I just want to stop and make a short note, Mr. Speaker, that depending on the nature and the type of vessel, they spend sometimes in excess of $100,000 a day for those yachts, significant, those super yachts. So it augurs well for us, Mr. Speaker. The 200 yachts, Mr. Speaker, it shows a marked increase, some 20% increase over the year, with 87% of those vessels falling specifically in the super yacht category. In January of 2017, Mr. Speaker, the marina at Christopher Harbour will host the Caribbean Crew Fest again, growing from 8 ships to 15, hosting some 300 crew. On average, 13% of the value of the boat will be spent in the economy in which the boat is docked. And so we estimate, Mr. Speaker, that one of the 2 yachts that home port with us at Christopher Harbour represents a potential direct economic impact of some $2.6 million. Mr. Speaker, the ultimate goal of our developing tourism is to create a sustainable product that protects our island's natural beauty for future generations and to positively impact the lives of our people. And it's important to note that several beach cleanup initiatives, Mr. Speaker, have been completed and brought communities together. And we are continuing to move forward with plans to address the challenges of the Frigate Bay and to enhance the strip. And I just want to go there, Mr. Speaker. How much, can you give me an idea of the time, Mr. Speaker?
Approximately 20 minutes more.
10 minutes more? I'll be wrapping up before that. Mr. Speaker, colleagues, I just want to draw your attention to the capital projects under the Ministry of Tourism for the ensuing year. Mr. Speaker, you would recognize that on the capital projects, I can begin with, let's say, South Frigate Bay Beach Enhancement Project, better known as the Strip. That project, Mr. Speaker, we have started in earnest. The first phase of that project we will end, I am advised, on December the 15th. That's a week, about a week and a half from now.
What's in the first phase?
The first phase is well, we have done some tremendous amount of work, I believe, on the sewer systems.
Some paving, that's the part of it.
Yes, I'm gonna get to that now. Mr. Speaker, we are paving the road, first of all. But before the road was paved, a lot of sewer work had to be done because a lot of the waste product, Mr. Speaker, was not, and the effluent was not going where it ought to. So we brought in the Public Works Department, Environment, and we made the necessary adjustments. The first part of the project is the construction of the road. That has commenced. We are going to now make the road a one-way road going from east to west. 90% of the curb wall, the edges, have been constructed. We have constructed already some 600 feet of the main sewage that has been installed. We had a number of consultations with the owners of the bars on the Strip, etc., to ensure, Mr. Speaker, that the disruption in their business was at a bare minimum. And so I'm pleased to announce that once all things happens as planned, the first phase will be finished by the 15th of December, and that's just the road and the paved sidewalks. The entrance and the exits and the grasscrete and the boardwalk, Mr. Speaker, those will come later. Mr. Speaker, this is costing in the first phase, some $3.2 million. $2 million provided by the government of St. Kitts and Nevis, and $1.2 million provided by the Caribbean Development Fund. And so we're happy to know that that is going smoothly, Mr. Speaker. Also on the capital projects, Mr. Speaker, we have the refurbishment of the Pelican Mall. And I need to say a bit on that, Mr. Speaker. That is costing somewhere in the region of an $800,000 allocation for that project, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is where we are intending to now house the Ministry of Tourism and the Tourism Authority. I think it is in keeping, Mr. Speaker, with the government's notions or plans that we have to get out of these rental accommodations that we're in and start to fix up properties owned by the government.
Yes.
So we don't have to be paying this astronomical rent for places. And so that will take a burden off of the government by some $250,000 for what we are paying where we are at the moment, Speaker. So hopefully by the end of 2017, we will have a brand new set of offices, not only for the Tourism Authority, but for the Ministry of Tourism also. On the capital projects also, Mr. Speaker, the revetment of the ferry terminal. We are now doing work already on the ferry terminal. I know my colleague from number 1 will probably give me a couple more dollars to make sure that we put it in pristine condition. But I think medium term and long term, Mr. Speaker, we need to address the matter of the ferry terminal. I believe the ferry terminal is in my words, a despicable condition. And we need to ensure that it is a more traveler-friendly environment. And so I believe working in conjunction with my colleague from number 1, I think medium and long term, we're going to have to look at changing the atmosphere and the character of the ferry terminal. But in the short term, Mr. Speaker, we are going to do a little remedial work, which is absolutely necessary at the moment. I would just like to touch one other of the capital projects, Mr. Speaker, and that refers to some $238,000 capital project, and it is under the rubric of Black Rock's Enhancement Project. Mr. Speaker, Black Rocks is a significant tourism product for St. Kitts. And we have begun doing a lot of work at Black Rocks. In fact, we've done the paving of certain areas in Black Rocks already. We have done the landscaping, put down some new palm trees, etc. in the area. We are now onto building 10 new facilities to house the persons who would sell their wear at the Black Rocks. And so we are hoping that by the end of 2017, Black Rocks would have had an entire new facelift going into 2018. And so I think it augurs well for the persons who sell at Black Rocks. I think it will give them an opportunity to be in a better environment and have an opportunity also to earn more and get more from the tourists that pass through there on a daily basis. In terms of, Mr. Speaker, the capital projects, a very important capital project comes under the rubric of Coastal Erosion Mitigation Project, South Frigate and Friars Bay. Mr. Speaker, because of the climatic conditions, whether it is global warming or whatever it is, we have seen that our beaches, 2 of our primary beaches, both at South Friars and Frigate Bay, have been undergoing some tremendous erosion. And so on the capital projects, we've been given a sum of $1.5 million to see how best we can rectify the challenges that we have not only at South Friars, but also at the Frigate Bay. And so we will move towards rectifying those problems so that the persons over there can not only get a better beach and a better feel, but that we try to mitigate the loss of the beach that we have presently. Mr. Speaker, I think I would have touched on every item that I needed to. And so, Mr. Speaker, with your leave, I want to commend the budget for 2016 to this Honorable House for safe passage, if it pleases you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Lindsey Grant, member for St. Christopher 5. Sorry, St. Christopher 4. I recognize the Honorable Mark Brantley, member for Nevis 9.
Mr. Speaker, I'm delighted to rise this morning to make my own contribution to the deliberations on the budgetary proposals for 2017. Mr. Speaker, at the outset, let me commend the Honorable Prime Minister and Minister of Finance and his team for a truly excellent budget. Indeed, I have been in this House now for just over a decade. First on that side, and now, thankfully, on this side. And I would wish to posit that this is one of the finest budgets ever presented in the National Assembly. This, Mr. Speaker, is a budget of hope for our people, from our non-established workers to our civil servants, to our nurses, to our farmers, to our police and security forces, to our young people, to our future homeowners, to our businesses, small, medium, and large, to our elderly, to our PEP workers, to each and every member of this country, this budget offers hope. But it is not only hope that most desirable of emotions, Mr. Speaker. The budget also speaks to the excellent management of the St. Kitts Nevis economy by this Team Unity government. This government, Mr. Speaker, of which I am privileged to be a part. Whatever the rhetoric and the language which is now used in our parlance, in this parliament and out there in the public, rah, rah, rah. Whatever that may be, the numbers never lie. Our economic outturns have by any measure been phenomenal. We have provided for our people at home, and indeed, Mr. Speaker, we have been so blessed to even offer assistance to our neighbors and friends in their darkest hour, as we did for Dominica last year and for Haiti and the Bahamas this year. To God be the glory. Because I never thought I would see the day when little St. Kitts and Nevis could become a donor country. We are the leading economy in the OECS, and we are among the best in class in the entire Caribbean and Latin America. Whereas this country was awash in a sea of red ink on our government finances, racking up deficit after deficit after deficit, year after year, for almost the entire period from 1995 to 2015. This Team Unity government, in just 22 months, has produced surpluses on all of our accounts. Mr. Speaker, before I go further, I listened to an experienced parliamentarian, one with far more experience than me, one who has been Prime Minister and was Prime Minister of this country for nearly 20 years, the member for number 6. In his attempt at a rebuttal yesterday, which I believe has been described as a woeful attempt in some quarters, he made heavy weather of the fact that somehow our Prime Minister, in presenting the budget, sought to ad-lib in parts, and sought, even the suggestion was that there might be some legal issue. Mr. Speaker, I took the time because it is important to undertake research so that when we come to the public and we can speak sensibly, intelligently, cogently to the people of the nation. And I'm reminded, Mr. Speaker, that we have come here on the basis of an order paper duly circulated. And that order paper says to us that we are here to debate the appropriation 2017 bill 2016. It is no different to any other bill that we come to debate, save and except that under the standing orders of this House, there are some peculiar rules and requirements, specifically in relation to the length of speeches and the courtesies that the rules offer to all members of the House in the context of a budget discussion. This document, and I want to make it clear, this document doesn't constitute a legal document. This document constitutes an address to the House on the part of the Minister of Finance and Prime Minister. He could just as well have come and done it early. There is no requirement under the law, Mr. Speaker, for this document to be put in. What is required? that the bill be produced, the draft estimates be produced, and that the debate occur. And so this document, which has become the practice, is, if you will, an aid memoir. It is an effort to put something in writing, which normally, Mr. President, deals with highlights. It doesn't seek, Mr. President, to adumbrate every single number or figure in the budget. It deals with highlights. And so there is absolutely nothing wrong with any presenter of a budget to ad-lib, to speak orally, extemporaneously, or however they wish to speak, because nobody could ever go to a court of law and say, this was said or that was said in relation to the budget address. The budget address is not the law. And for a seasoned and senior parliamentarian who himself was Minister of Finance for so long, not to know that is exceedingly troubling to me. To come in here and try to mislead people that the budget address had to slavishly adhere to what is written in this book, when he knows better, Mr. Speaker, and he ought to know better. And so I want to clear that up at the outset.
Excuse me for interrupting, honourable member, but it's interesting you're raising that point, because you may recall that is why I put this specific question to the honourable leader of the opposition, if his objection was, or his concern was, what the Prime Minister was saying here is different to what's in the actual draft estimates.
Exactly. It is the estimates, Mr. Speaker, that are laid that upon the passage of the relevant legislation, coupled with the resolution that we will look at, that then becomes the law. Not the budget address. The budget address talks to hopes, aspirations, outcomes, expectations. I can't go to court and say, look here, they said they were going to give $100,000 for something and they didn't give it. And you have to know better and not come in here and seek to mislead. There's a word I use all the time, you know. We use it in Nevis because we see it a lot. We call it cataflam. And you come and you pump a set yourself and you beat your chest and you make plenty noise. Foolishness, if said loudly, is still foolishness. And we must not allow foolishness to creep into our body politic and masquerade as sense. So I want to make that point at the outset. There's absolutely nothing wrong with the manner in which the budget was presented. What is relevant is that the relevant documents are laid and that we have the debate in relation to the law that is under consideration, the bill which we hope to become an act once passed, the Appropriation 217 Bill 2016. 2017 Bill, 2016. Mr. Speaker, with that, if you will, sideway comment, I go back to the main thrust of my discussion this morning. Mr. Speaker, let us, sometimes when we hear the lectures that are being given, we hear the stories that are being advanced from the other side. I have always thought it. I was trained as a lawyer. And when I came out as a lawyer, Mr. Speaker, I sought to listen to those who had been successful in the courts. Those who people would hold up as examples. Those who I could learn something from. So when they said to me, son, you need to do it this way, or this is a better approach to cross-examination, I learned from them and was prepared to take counsel from them. My concern is when we have had people who have failed in government, have had a long run, one of the longest runs in the Caribbean, have failed to deliver for the people until ultimately the people have rejected them. And they come now to lecture us, a government that is only 22 months old. I had occasion, Mr. Speaker, to comment in a particular forum that whilst the name Timothy is found in the Bible, it is not the same as Jesus. And I say that to say this: we ought not to expect problems which could not be solved in 20 years in this country to be solved in 22 months. And sometimes when I listen to the rhetoric, I hear the argument and the discussion out there, I wonder how it is that some who could not solve some problems in 20 years demand and expect solutions to those very problems in 22 months. Sometimes I hear the chatter, and I wonder if they feel that this government has been here for 10, 15 years. We are a brand new government. A brand new government, and we must be given a chance and judged on our record to date. Not only constant rah, rah, rah that you hear out there. They come to lecture us about good governance, about the economy. Well, they were in charge of the economy from 1995 until 2015. The figures and the statistics show that the government led by the member from number 6 racked up deficits in each and every single year over the 12-year period, ranging from 7.3 million to highs of 56.6 million. And that is that 12-year period from 1995 to 2006. Deficit in each and every year. Over the course of that 12 years, you weren't asking if there will be a deficit. You were asking how much the deficit going to be this year. He returned to a surplus position. The country returned to a surplus position in 2007, 2008, and 2009. Small surpluses. But by 2010, Mr. Speaker, St. Kitts and Nevis recorded the largest ever deficit in the history of our country of some $87.4 million. That is red. That is Labour red. Red. They used to come in red socks. I used to sit over there and tell them that their socks were as red as the country's finances. We're in the red. They take the red thing too far, Mr. Speaker. And that is what they did year after year. Indeed, for 20 budgets presented by the previous government, 13 of them were deficit budgets. 13 out of 20. I'm not so good at the math, but that's more than half. 13. So when they come in, 65%. So when you come in, that is your legacy. And you start to lecture and talk about the economy and whether it's decelerating or accelerating, that is your legacy. That for 20 budgets, 13 or fully 65% were in deficit. The achievement of surpluses, Mr. Speaker, for this unity administration is all the more remarkable. And it has been said by each speaker, and I believe it needs to be said by those yet to speak. It is all the more remarkable because within the first few months of being in government, this government removed VAT from food, medicine, education supplies, and funeral expenses. Many said it could not be done, it would not be done. And as we heard the Prime Minister and Minister of Finance and mover of the bill said, he did it by the stroke of a pen. It was done. And so when, having done that, and clearly the losses that would have been experienced and expected from that, giving that relief to our citizenry, that the country is still in surplus position, it is significant and speaks volumes to the manner in which the economy is being managed. The outturns have not suffered. It lends credibility to the economic theory that low taxes yield greater spending, and spending and consumption drive economic activity. When we consider in St. Kitts and Nevis, Mr. Speaker, that our taxes, our revenue is largely driven by indirect taxes and taxes on consumption. The returns from custom and VAT receipts demonstrate unequivocally that there is considerable economic activity in the country. People are buying and selling. Businesses are enjoying good turnover and acceptable profits. How do I know this, Mr. Speaker? I know this because the revenue earned by government on these business activities is at all-time highs. I know this because we listen to the business people. We hear what they are telling us. At this year's consultation on the economy, statistics from the Ministry of Finance revealed that there has been a tremendous rebound in the wholesale and retail sectors. These grew by 9.13% in 2015 compared to an anemic 0.35% in 2014. Indeed, just 4 years prior, under the then leadership of the member from number 4, the wholesale and retail sectors shrunk. Number 6, the wholesale and retail sectors shrunk by 10.35%. Shrunk. You come in here talking about deceleration. 10.35% reduction. That's what shrink means. You get smaller. Wholesale and retail sector. Mr. Kelsick, Chairman and Managing Director of SL Hospital and Company Limited, wrote in his chairman's report for 2012, because the comparison is important. He says this, and I quote, "The results for 2012 have been very disappointing as the economies of St. Kitts and Nevis continue their decline." He went on, "The economy, already in decline for the past 5 years, continued its decline even further in 2012. The effects of VAT and increased electricity costs caused further contraction on the ability of the residents of St. Kitts and Nevis to spend." Mr. Speaker, that is the legacy. That is the legacy of Labour and NRP. What is the position by comparison on the team unity? In 2015, the same company, Hosford, recorded the highest sales in the history of that company. They performed better in 2015 than they did between 2011 and 2014, as reflected in income before tax, profits, retained earnings, shareholders' equity, dividends, and total assets. All in this year, across the board, they perform better. The same gentleman, Mr. Kelsick, we listen to them because at the end of the day, we can say what we want. These are the people on the front line in terms of business and in terms of the economy.
Yes.
The same man, Mr. Kelsick, he was so gloomy in 2012. But in 2015, he spoke about extensive renovations. And I quote him, "During 2015, extensive renovations were done to both furniture store locations for Hosford. No decline in sales was experienced, despite the disruptions caused by the renovations." Confidence had come back to the country, Mr. Speaker. Confidence had come back to the country because the people had leadership and a government that instilled confidence in them. In similar vein, lest you feel it's just Hosford, TDC Group recorded in their 2015-2016 Director's Report, and I quote, "The year under review was an historic one for the automotive division. In December 2015, the highest monthly sales were recorded since the introduction of the Toyota brand in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis." These are the business people talking to us. That's not us. We're not marking our own exam paper. These are them. Yeah. They who are speaking and saying, these are the outcomes, the outturns in the economy, driven by policies of the Team Unity administration. Let's look quickly at jobs. Always a good indicator. They say things are dead. We just heard my colleague, Minister from number 4, who said how things can be dead. And you have 4 cruise ships in. One time, 4 cruise ships, the taxi men balling out. Slow the thing down.
Slow it down.
But you said things are dead. In Nevis, we don't have that kind of cruise industry in Nevis. We focus on stay-over visitors. But nevertheless, the other day, I hear Nevis run out of taxi. And that's good news. So we had to get hire bus who had horse and buggy, bring them. Whatever they had, because people needed to be moved around. When I hear this constant noise that nothing is happening, the numbers don't say that, Mr. Speaker, and it is high time the public starts to say, well, if you say nothing is happening, how come everything is up? Yeah. How come? How come the people who are the leaders in the business community are saying to the country, saying to their shareholders, saying to the world, that things are looking good, things are looking rosy? When TDC could tell you that they had the highest monthly sales since the introduction of Toyota. I know Toyota all my life. I bought a Toyota 20 years ago. 20 years ago. So Toyota here a long time. And the highest sales since Toyota was ever introduced was achieved under Team Unity administration. Social Security. Social Security. And you know, what I find interesting, whenever the data presented by the hard-working people in the Ministry of Finance suited the argument of the leader of the opposition, he says right here, the estimates don't lie. Estimates don't lie. But whenever the data did not suit him, he started to say, we're cooking the books. Creative accounting, he said. Creative lying, he said. You can't have it both ways. You can't tell the nation that the estimates don't lie because you see some decline and that suits your purpose. And then say to the same nation that the numbers are bogus.
In the same estimates on which you rely.
It also, and I'm being reminded by the Deputy Prime Minister and colleague from number 5, that by so doing, he questions the integrity of the professionals of the Ministry of Finance. He's saying the FS and all the hard-working staff, Mr. Speaker, do not have the necessary integrity, so they're coming to fool the nation. He said it himself when he used to present budgets that he doesn't write the budget, he doesn't write the speech, the outcomes are the outcomes. We in the government set policy, at the end of the year we report and we project, but it is the technocrats and the professional people who put these documents together, and so when he questions that, he questions them, questions the integrity, say they come to fool the nation. That is what the suggestion is. Not the suggestion, the bold statement. So what does Social Security say about jobs? Social Security data shows that for 2015, the average number of jobs stood at 24,333. Now this is what is relevant, Mr. Speaker. The largest number of jobs recorded in Social Security history. So Social Security fooling people too? The largest number in the history of Social Security. In addition, it doesn't stop there. People were making more money, Mr. Speaker, as wages in 2015 averaged 72.27 million per month, the highest payroll figures on record at Social Security. And that reflects a 7% increase over wages paid in 2014, which averaged 67.57 million per month. So we have more jobs under Team Unity. We have better paying jobs under Team Unity. Social Security cannot collect money from people who are not working. Social Security cannot collect money in an economy where nothing is happening. And these are the numbers, these are the figures. We heard the member for number 5 speak to the IMF, speak to the World Bank, speak to the Central Bank, speak to ECLAC, speak to CDB. All of these organizations which are external to this government, all of them independent and credible organizations, all of them have spoken to the outcomes, the positive outcomes in the Sinkers-Nevis economy. The only people saying that nothing is happening is the rah crowd, day after day. And no matter what Social Security, ECCB, ECLAC, UE, CDB, who else? IMF, World Bank, no matter what they say that all of them are trying to mislead the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. But you see, Mr. Speaker, we should never forget from whence we came. I feel sometimes we have shorter memories than we should. While some now come to lecture this government,
Unethical amnesia.
what do you call it?
Unethical amnesia.
Unethical amnesia. All kind of language, kakistocus, unethical amnesia, rah, being put into the lexicon of the political jargon in the country now. Unethical amnesia. They come now to lecture. But they forget that under them, the country was the most indebted, not just in the Caribbean, but one of the highest debt GDP per capita ratios in the world. In the world. That was the reality. under their leadership, under them. They talk about crime. I'm going to say a word on that. The country became, sadly and devastatingly for us, the murder capital of the world. Under them.
Yeah.
Under them.
And it was
The U.S. government issued their FinCEN advisory. Under them, the Canadian government revoked our long-held right to access their country visa-free. It hurt all of us with all the cataflam. Why were these things done? You see, we must not only speak to what happened, we must explain to the nation why they happened. Why were these things done? They say in their response, oh, it's the opposition. I have never seen a more powerful opposition anywhere in the world. Because we stayed in opposition, they say. Destroyed the whole CBI program. We stayed in opposition. We caused Canada to revoke visa. We stayed in opposition. We moved the entire United States Treasury Department to issue the FinCEN advisory.
So
that is the power we had in opposition.
We had more credibility in the position than
They're in government.
they're relating to them and they're listening to us.
And here's the language that they're bringing. The Nancy story that they're seeking to tell the public. Well, documents can be found. And so I said, well, it's an easy thing. If it is that the opposition was the reason for CBI suffering some setbacks, let us go to the record. So let us deal first with the good people and government of Canada. They issued on November 22nd, 2014. Same day, here are the things, Mr. Speaker. Their release from the government of Canada from their website. They said, as of 12 p.m. today, they didn't even give us a week or two and say, well, boy, from next month, this is going to be the case. As of 12 p.m. today, citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis will require a visa to travel to Canada. Brap, just so. I am sure some people might have been on a plane to Canada when this came out. And hear what it goes on to say. This is the Canadian government speaking, not Team Unity. It says, and I quote, Canada has implemented the visa requirement on St. Kitts and Nevis due to concerns about the issuance of passports and identity management practices within the Citizenship by Investment program. That is dated in November 22nd, 2014, as far as I know. Remember, who presented the Honorable Prime Minister now was not the Prime Minister then. November 22nd, 2014, Canada has implemented the visa requirement on St. Kitts and Nevis due to concerns about the issuance of passports and identity management practices within its Citizenship by Investment program. That is Canada. It goes on. Canada is acting to protect the safety and security of Canadians and the integrity of our immigration system. The visa requirement will ensure, and this is important, Mr. Speaker, the visa requirement will ensure that Canada will be able to properly determine the true identity of St. Kitts and Nevis passport holders and to deny entry to those who would otherwise be inadmissible to Canada. I'm going to break that down. Because what Canada is saying is that we were not sure who these people were that the Douglas-led administration was giving passports to under the CBI program. And why is that? We recall, because I stood over there and spoke to it when I was in opposition, that he unilaterally, forgive me, the member for number 6, unilaterally took the decision that he will remove from our passports the place of origin. That was his decision. He took the further decision that if your name was Mark Brantley and you decided to change that name to Eugene Hamilton, that you could get a St. Kitts Nevis passport in your new name, Eugene Hamilton, with no reference to your previous name. From a security point of view, I want the nation to consider. What they say, walk with me? Walk with me. Yeah. And consider that you had now people showing up around the world in an environment which is fraught with danger and risk, and where security is uppermost in people's minds, Mr. Speaker, showing up around the world with a Sinkis Nevis passport, which didn't say where you were born, where you originated. All it said was citizen of Sinkis Nevis. And it did not say what previous names you had. So all of a sudden, Mark Brantley changed his name to Eugene Hamilton, and he gets a passport. We say, Eugene Hamilton, citizen of Sinkis Nevis. They don't know if Eugene was born in Iran, Iraq, Libya. No indication. That is what was done. And when I raised it in opposition, I remember the then foreign minister, the member for number 11, he stood up and defended it.
Misled the country.
Defended it. Said IKO don't require that these fields be put in. You all remember?
Yes.
IKO doesn't require it. And that, Mr. Speaker, is what led us down that slippery slope and caused countries like Canada to say, in their own words, that they had concerns. Canada basically said, we don't know who's, for want of better language, a born Kittitian and Nivision, and who got it through economic citizenship. And that was the very reason it was done. Because when the gentleman from number 6 sought eventually to explain, he said that some people can't travel. And so he was trying to help those people to travel.
He can't travel to the US.
That's why I say he needs to help himself. But let us look at the FinCEN advisory. Because again, and don't take my word for it, Mr. Speaker, you can have this copy if you like, but the public can go.
I would appreciate that, sir.
Yes, I will provide them to you. They can see for themselves. FinCEN issued an advisory on Sinkis Nevis on the 20th of May, 2014. 20th of May, 2014, the date is important. This was under the leadership of the member from number 6.
Leader of the opposition.
And it said, FinCEN believes, and I'm quoting, that illicit actors are abusing the Citizenship by Investment program to acquire Sinkis Nevis citizenship in order to mask their identity and geographic background. You see? Mask their identity and geographic background. And how it is, FinCEN could say that because they removed the place of origin of the people from the passport. So if that is gone, there's no geographic background available. They did it.
Yeah.
FinCEN believes that illicit actors, bad people,
Terrorists.
are abusing the program to acquire citizenship in order to mask their identity and geographic background for the purpose of evading U.S. or international sanctions or engaging in other financial crime.
My bad.
But FinCEN didn't stop there, because you recall, Mr. Speaker, that in this very house, the now leader of the opposition came in with a song and dance about Iranians and said we're going to stop processing Iranians because America was putting pressure. He said we're going to stop. So what FinCEN says, while, and I quote, while many countries offer programs similar to the Sinkis Nevis Citizenship by Investment program, the Sinkis Nevis program is attractive to illicit actors because the program, as administered, let me pause there, administered by whom? Not Team Unity. As administered by them. The program, as administered, maintains lax controls as to who may be granted citizenship. While the SKN government has publicly pledged to improve these controls, FinCEN believes that they remain ineffective. For example, in 2013, the SKN government announced that all Iranian nationals were suspended from participating in the Sinkis Nevis Citizenship by Investment program. Despite that public assurance, FinCEN believes that Iranian nationals continue to obtain passports issued through the program. As a result of these lax controls, illicit actors, including individuals intending to use the secondary citizenship to evade sanctions, can obtain an SKN passport with relative ease. You see, Mr. Speaker, I didn't hear them say anything in here about Team Unity say, or Timothy Harris say, or Mark Brantley say. They spoke to the realities, mismanagement of the program. They spoke to the fact that those reckless decisions taken to accommodate whoever they were taken to accommodate resulted in our program being unsafe and the security of our passport being put at question. And that's why we are where we are today. Story has a beginning. And we must always start the story at the beginning. Sometimes you pick it up in the middle. You don't get the essence. That is why we are where we are today. They never mentioned us. They spoke to what they observed. As foreign minister of this country, Mr. Speaker, and the person charged principally with repairing some of these damaged relationships, and especially two of our most important partners, Canada and the United States, I can say to the House and to the nation, in all candor, in all honesty, it has not been easy. It has not been easy. Those now on the other side destroy the trust that hitherto existed between our nations. And we all know, Mr. Speaker, that trust once destroyed requires time and patience to rebuild. The nation will recall vividly that when Canada took punitive action against all the citizenry of St. Kitts and Nevis, not some, all. We heard, I believe, it was a member from number 1 who spoke about someone wanting to go to a funeral in Canada. Can't go. We used to, from New York, you waltz over to Canada for Caribana. You can't go. These are our new realities. But what was the response from the then government? Let me jog the memory of the House, and the memory is the collected memory of the nation. The response from the then government was that losing visa-free access to Canada did not matter. We were told that we now joined over 100 other countries requiring visas to go to Canada. The way they make the thing sound is like St. Kitts Nevis win the lottery.
So from 11.
Remember from number 11? Number 11. A man I know well, I told him you should have never read that piece of paper they give you to read. Never do it. Talk about, oh, we joined the list. So what's the big deal? Over 100 countries need visa to go. So it was a good thing in their eyes that we lost the right to go to Canada. A good thing. We were also told, lest we forget, that Canada grudged St. Kitts and Nevis. Y'all forget that?
Yeah.
They said Canada grudged us because our CBI program doing so well. Huh? I'm reminded that the member for number 6 even went forward and said only old people go Canada. Yeah? I need to say these things, lest we forget the puerile, jokey responses from a government, then running away from emotional underconfidence and making a global nuisance of itself. When we go now, and the Honorable Prime Minister has led delegations of which I've been privileged to be a part. When we go now, you know, Mr. Speaker, and we go to these countries to talk, they have some kind of language, must be code. They start to tell us about legacy issues. Legacy issues. When you go and you say to them, well, as a Team Unity administration, we want to repair this relationship, we want this thing, we want access to go back to Canada visa-free. They talk about legacy issues. Legacy, Mr. Speaker, speaks to the past. That's what he speaks to. For example, they say they're concerned that we still have passports, especially diplomatic passports, out there unaccounted for. I'm making a clean breast of things to the nation so that the people understand what we're dealing with. These are the types of comments that come to us. They continue to ask about passports with no place of birth, where holders were allowed to use any name they like on the passport. None of these issues were created by this government. All were created by the reckless Labour NRP administration. That is why, when one of them tried recently to speak at a CBI event in Dubai, he was removed from the speakers list. Cast aside like yesterday's bad news. These are the real issues, Mr. Speaker, that we continue to grapple with. So when they have the audacity now to ask me, what happened to restoring visa-free access to Canada? My response to them is consistent. We should never have lost it in the first place. And in any event, I ask the people on the other side, and those that support them, why are you asking us about visa-free access to Canada when you say it didn't matter? Why? I wish to assure the House and the nation that this Team Unity government continues to engage with the Canadian government at the highest levels. We have opened our High Commission in Ottawa. First time that St. Kitts Nevis has had diplomatic presence at that level in Canada. And we, Mr. Speaker, are working at this assiduously to seek to turn things around and to repair that relationship. We're doing the same with the United States government because these relationships are important to this government and to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. We will not take lectures from those who have failed us in this regard. Mr. Speaker, I want to just say one quick statistic on crime. I won't tarry because I know there are others who will speak on that. But as leader of the opposition, as I was some time ago, I was a very strong voice in this House and in the country on the issue of crime. And as a strong voice then, and I continue to try and lend my voice because I believe it is a social cancer that all of us must engage to eradicate. If it is that the leader of the opposition is now prepared to accept and shoulder some responsibility because the nation will recall that he says, I take no responsibility for crime. He said the criticisms roll off my back like water off a duck's back. We must remind the people. Then he was Prime Minister. He said he took no responsibility for the carnage that was happening in the streets of St. Kitts and Nevis. Now he comes and nobody's more concerned about crime. Nobody's more concerned. Oh, he wants a consultation. He wants us to get together.
He pretended.
Nobody's more concerned, Mr. Speaker, but he had 20 years to solve the problem. Yeah. Indeed, it became a problem under him.
Yes.
And he did nothing. So I heard the rah, rah, rah. The one from, what number is she from? 2.
So
Over there sitting down. Every chance, she mouth in the microphone saying something. And she bawled out more than once. 30 murders. 30 murders. Mr. Speaker, let me be very clear. One murder is one too many. One murder is one too many. But again, we must examine the messengers who come now. And are so sanctimonious. They come to the nation and they say, we are concerned about crime. And so, what was the position in relation to murders? Just that one. The most vicious of crimes. One that takes us back to the Garden of Eden. Biblical times. 1995. Member for number 6 became Prime Minister in his country. And he sat in that seat for 20 long years until he was dislodged. In that period of time, based on the statistics I have here, this country had some 274 murders. 274 murders during that period of time. We went from lows in some years of 3 to highs. Our worst year was in 2011, 35.
You could add the 9 in the first 8 or so.
And I'm being told the first 9 or so in the first 8 weeks of 2015, until, of course, the people acted to change the government. Nearly 300 murders. It doesn't give me any pleasure to say this, because each and every person cut down in this fashion has a family. They leave children, they leave loved ones. It is a cancer, but I make the point just to say that those who now seek to cast aspersions on a 22-month-old government, they have absolutely no moral authority to speak to the issue of crime. None. Because when they were there and had all the resources, they boasted they leave how much? 700 million in the treasury. SIDF bringing in 1.4 billion. We had the finest CBI program in the world. Leader. What they do with the money? Drive around, sink it. Drive around, sink it. You see any highways? You see a new airport? You see a new seaport? It takes a team unity government now to bring you the additional pay at Port Zante. Yeah. Drive around the country. You hear the reports brought by the Minister of Education at CFBC. You hear about termites, bat droppings. You hear about the people, about the Coast Guard, the police station, St. Paul's, Newcastle, asbestos, our officers exposed and their health exposed. All of those are things, crumbling infrastructure. Drive around the country. Don't take my word for it. Where the money gone? Where the money gone? Yesterday, I heard him say, surplus, put the surplus to work for the people. That's what he said. Put the surplus to work for the people. What he do with the people money? Because you cannot see where the money went. You can't find it. You can't look around the country and see the development that that kind of money should have brought. Where it gone? Squandermania. Squandermania. You know where the money went? You take up 72 million as an election gimmick and you put it into a PEP program designed to keep people poor. That's what you did. You make the people dress up in their shirt. And just like the member for number 11 sought to say to us, we ought to rejoice that we had joined 100 other countries that needed a visa to go to Canada. So now we were told that PEP was so good that you should wear a t-shirt and come in town. We have to step it up. Because we recognize that what was designed as an election gimmick to keep people poor. There was no movement, no effort to train, no mobility. And you know how we know that? Because they themselves commissioned a CDB report. I have an excerpt from it in my hand. They spent $72 million, and the report said only 130 people were exposed to training, 16 males and 114 females. That's it. The country must ask them. When they come now and they talk about fiscal prudence, good management, accountability, you spend $72 million and only 130 people exposed to training. And then what is the nature of the training? Huh? When you look, the same city report say, let me read here. Instructional materials were old and had been discontinued since 2007. While some of the modules may still be useful, they are not current and not in line with international regional best practice. So you're not even training the people to ready them for today's world. You're training them to ready them for 2007. Because it was an election gimmick. No genuine effort to help people, to graduate people, as I like to say, to give people a hand up, not a handout. A hand up, Mr. Speaker, that's what the country needs. And that's why we say instead of PEP, we're going to have STEP. We're going to step it up. I like the way the move on the bill put it. We will not end the PEP, we will mend the PEP. Oh, yes. If there's one line from this whole debate, I think was the classic, was that. Yes. Yes. Mend it. Step up the people. The idea is to train people. You're showing the man how to fish so he could support himself. Yes. Not got people sitting on home getting $300 a week. That has done untold damage to the country in terms of the work ethic and the approach. As a minister of this government, I go now to some young people and they're so accustomed now over the years to collecting money and not working. They don't want to work. So why would you work if you could collect your money every Friday? You sit down and you enjoy yourself. Yeah. It has demoralized our people. Yeah. And we now need to retrain and reorient and retool in order to make it work. PEP, hear what tells you now. They say some trainees, this is a CDB report, some trainees have been in the program for over 2.5 years and have not yet received any certification. So, Lord, you only offer training to 130. And even among the 130,
Can't get them a certificate.
they can't get a certificate. What that means is that they can't go anywhere to say, I was trained, because they don't have a piece of paper to show. That was reality. But Mr. Speaker, unless you feel, and the House feels, and the nation feels that I only come here to talk about those things, I have ministries, so let me go to that. So, Speaker, I'm privileged to lead the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Aviation. On the one hand, we seek to connect global happenings with our national affairs. We seek to find solutions from the outside world relevant to our domestic context and bring to our shores benefits emanating from international partnerships. In other words, we attempt to eliminate the them versus us mentality, and instead we seek to demonstrate how two worlds can work in tandem to our mutual benefit. Aviation, we seek to ensure that we maintain our tourism industry by continuously enhancing our safety and security at our Federation's airports. We do that not just for our tourists, but also for our own traveling public. I would wish, Mr. Speaker, to take some time to highlight some of our major achievements. Mr. Speaker, an area in which I am exceedingly proud, the establishment of diplomatic relations. When I became Minister of Foreign Affairs and we did an assessment, I was very surprised, Mr. Speaker, that a nation now 33 years old had many countries with which it had no formal diplomatic relations. In fact, I was surprised at some of the countries. The public, for example, I am sure would never have thought that we never had diplomatic relations with Dominican Republic. We have a mayor here, minister from number 1, mayor in all things Spanish, man who has lots of people from the Dominican Republic who are our own people, who have settled in his constituency. They're in Nevis, in places like Newcastle, St. Paul's, in number 9, of course. Many people in the country now habla la lengua. Habla español. Es muy importante. Yeah. Including the Prime Minister, I am trying to speak Venezuelan yesterday. I don't know if that was Spanish. But the point I'm making is that we had all of these countries and we had no relations with them, formal diplomatic relations. So we set about a deliberate effort to mend that. It allows us to engage with them, to negotiate with them at various levels. It leads to enhanced cooperation. And so we have set out on that path. I'm very proud, Mr. Speaker, to advise the House and the nation that over the past year, we have established diplomatic relations with 12 countries. Belarus, Croatia, Cyprus, the Dominican Republic, the Gambia, Kenya, Kosovo, Maldives, Mauritius, Mongolia, Saudi Arabia, and Senegal. This averages 1 per month and is no meager feat considering that negotiations and responses from capitals can be prolonged by internal processes. I wish at this juncture to express appreciation to our heads of mission, who in fulfillment of their plenipotentiary duties signed a number of the instruments on behalf of the government. There are times, Mr. Speaker, when assistance is required for various reasons from international partners, those from which such is forthcoming may very well be some of the same countries we would have embraced in difficult times. In the year ahead, we intend to pursue with even more intent and fervor our goal to establish ties with as many of the 194 countries with whom we share membership in the United Nations and the 52 member states of the Commonwealth of Nations. Visa waiver. This has been another significant plank in what we've been trying to do at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. States deal on the basis of reciprocity. The ministry often receives reports from some nationals who on arrival at either RLB or Van Amery Airport discover that a visa is required to their destinations and are thus unable to travel because they do not possess the requisite visa. I contend, Mr. Speaker, that there are far too many countries where our citizens are unable to travel because there's a visa requirement. Some which require fees, at times exorbitant, and may also incur travel costs, especially when the applicant is required to make a personal appearance. Since I became Minister with responsibility for foreign affairs, It has been my pledge to eliminate this burden upon our nationals wishing to travel abroad for a variety of reasons. I'm grateful to the Cabinet for supporting this initiative. Mr. Speaker, I see you looking at me. How am I doing in terms of my time? While I wait, this time isn't counting, right?
Yeah, about 30 minutes.
About 30 minutes. Oh, I'm doing well. Mr. Speaker, I will admit that the process in relation to visa waiver is slow, it's laborious, it requires patience, and we go back and forth sometimes on the documentation, but we have been working at it. Every country has a right to restrict visitors to its shores, and we must understand that given the recent spate in cross-border terrorist attacks and transnational crimes, the hike in security requirements can certainly be appreciated. We have experienced that some countries prefer to exempt diplomatic and official passport holders as opposed to ordinary passport holders. This is one area in some cases where we have experienced an impasse because this government firmly believes, Mr. Speaker, that all of our nationals should have equal treatment. And the matter of visa waiver is a privilege I would wish every citizen to be afforded. Nevertheless, so as not to stall the process, we have decided when necessary to negotiate as a first step visa waivers for holders of diplomatic and official passports with a view to obtaining such for persons with ordinary passports. I am pleased to report that the visa waiver agreement signed this year, Mr. Speaker, with Kosovo, with Kenya, with the Ukraine, with the Maldives, with Indonesia, and with Seychelles are for all three types of passport holders. Taiwan, our long friend and ally, has also agreed that if you hold St. Nevis citizenship, if you have a St. Nevis passport, you can now apply online for your visa and they will waive the fee. So that is a concession that we've had from the Taiwanese government. Another important rationale, of course, for pursuing visa waivers is so-called added value to our passport. Of course, Mr. Speaker, it is no secret that some persons invest in the Federation through the Citizenship by Investment Program, and they do so in order to obtain our passport and facilitate their ease of travel. The thrust of this Team Unity government, however, is to ensure that all citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis can move freely globally, with an economy heavily dependent on tourism, and in the belief that the best diplomacy is ultimately people-to-people diplomacy, we shall continue to aggressively pursue via waiver arrangements with the remaining 44 countries that we do not yet have such arrangements with. Mr. Speaker, currently our St. Kitts Nevis passport permits our citizens visa-free or visa upon arrival access to 152 countries of the world. This is truly significant because it means that Kittitians and Nevisians can access visa-free or visa upon arrival some 78% of all countries in the world. I am exceedingly proud to advise now, Mr. Speaker, that Senegal, Sierra Leone, Rwanda, and the United Arab Emirates, of course, we heard a lot about Dubai. Dubai is in the United Arab Emirates. So I'm pleased that Senegal, Sierra Leone, Rwanda, and the United Arab Emirates have now all signaled their readiness to sign negotiated reciprocal visa waiver agreements with St. Kitts and Nevis early in the new year. Russia has also now advised that they're taking a look at our proposed final draft to also permit access to our citizens without a visa. India has proposed that they will offer visa waiver in the first tranche to those with diplomatic and official passports. I fully expect, therefore, that by early 2017, Mr. Speaker, the St. Kitts Nevis passport will be one of the most powerful in the entire Caribbean region. This is a privilege many other passports do not possess, and it thus renders our passport a desirable document. By way of comparison in the OECS, Mr. Speaker, the Antigua and Barbuda passport permits visa-free access to 134 countries. They used to be tied with us. We have now moved ahead of them. Grenada permits visa-free access to 121 countries. St. Lucia, 125. St. Vincent and the Grenadines, 125. And Dominica, 119 countries. Much larger countries such as Belize, Jamaica, Haiti, Suriname, Cuba, Dominican Republic, and Guyana allow visa-free access to less than 95 countries. I want to just put that in context, because whilst some passports allow you visa-free access to less than 95 countries, the St. Kitts Nevis passport is the most powerful passport in the entire Eastern Caribbean, allowing access visa-free or visa upon arrival to 152 countries. And in the new year, early, when we add Rwanda, we add Senegal, we add Sierra Leone, and we add the United Arab Emirates, it means consistent with the platinum standard. Absolutely correct. Thank you, Mr. AG. We have agreements pending with a host of other countries, Mr. Speaker. And as air travel continues to become accessible and affordable, we shall continue to do what we can to facilitate ease of travel for our citizens in this significant way. Hosting of meetings. We had Diplomatic Week this year, April 2016. Diplomatic Week, which had been started under the Honorable Prime Minister when he was there somewhere else as Minister of Foreign Affairs. Well, we revived it after a hiatus of 8 years. We hosted it under the theme Forging New Partnerships and Strengthening Networks for Sustainable Growth and Economic Development. All of our heads of mission came home. Representatives of diplomatic missions of over 25 countries spanning every continent graced our shores during that week, and 6 members of our Overseas Consular Corps also participated. This is significant, because for a small country like St. Kitts and Nevis to host Diplomatic Week and attract representatives from 25 countries on every continent were here, we think that that demonstrates how serious they view St. Kitts and Nevis in terms of our diplomatic outreach. The fact that, save for our own heads of mission, all others paid their own way to participate in the event speaks to the value they place on the Federation, but also the expectations they had about the exercise. I guarantee you, Mr. Speaker, that judging from the rave reviews received, they were not disappointed. In fact, I have had inquiries from colleagues in the region who have come with a view to also organizing their own Diplomatic Week, and they're asking St. Kitts and Nevis to help to show them the way. And I think, again, we're demonstrating leadership in the region. While still on the issue of forging new partnerships, this year was the first time that countries like Nicaragua, Indonesia, and the Philippines accredited ambassadors to us. And Diplomatic Week afforded them the opportunity to come and visit us for the first time. I am pleased to report, Mr. Speaker, that it was not only the visiting dignitaries that derived satisfaction from the event. There was a sense in the atmosphere in both St. Kitts and Nevis that this was a worthwhile endeavor. The media, the private sector, including the Chamber of Industry and Commerce, which hosted a breakfast. Students, we engaged them all in this process. During that week, the Chamber of Industry and Commerce signed a memorandum of understanding with its counterpart in Morocco. I was also able to sign a roadmap with a Moroccan representative for strengthening cooperation between our countries. In addition, our Ministry of Sustainable Development established closer links with the Caribbean Community Climate Change Center, CCCCC, 5 Cs, based in Belize, to garner well-needed assistance to access climate change funding. The CCCCC's executive director was a presenter at the Demystifying Climate Change Symposium. That is why, Mr. Speaker, we have pledged to make Diplomatic Week a triennial event, with the next one slated for 2019. The 26th session of the Caribbean Development and Cooperation Committee, CDCC, Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean, ECLAC, was also hosted here in April 2016. We hosted it right here at the Marriott during that time, and I was very privileged, Mr. Speaker, to have St. Kitts and Nevis assume the chair of CDCC at that meeting. At the meeting, the committee endorsed the creation of an interagency task force to elaborate the details of the Debt for Climate Adaptation swap proposal to the adoption of Resolution 93, advancing a debt relief initiative for the Caribbean. Other resolutions adopted a number of adopted a number of areas, enhancing support for capacity building and disaster assessment and resilience building strategies in the Caribbean, promoting awareness of aging in the Caribbean, ensuring synergy in implementation of sustainable development goals, and the small island states' accelerated modalities of action, the Samoa pathway in the Caribbean sub-region. We welcome St. Martin as a member of the Caribbean Development and Cooperation Committee. International Civil Aviation Organization technical meetings in October, just 2 months ago. The Civil Aviation arm of the ministry successfully hosted the 7th Eastern Caribbean Network Technical Group and 5th Eastern Caribbean Radar Data Sharing Ad Hoc Group meetings at the OTI over the period 17 to 21st October 2016. During that week, Mr. Speaker, the technicians were able to develop their competencies regarding various aspects of their work and exchange best practices to facilitate improvement in all areas associated with their work. Mr. Speaker, we have been relentless in lobbying for the removal of St. Kitts and Nevis as a non-cooperative tax jurisdiction. You will recall that in 17 June 2015, the European Commission published a press release with a list of international tax havens and its action plan for fair and efficient corporate taxation in the EU. Immediately, my ministry took action. We responded with diplomatic notes, which were sent to the 10 EU countries that had placed St. Kitts and Nevis on their national blacklist. In essence, the notes sought clarification on the criteria used by those countries to blacklist us. The correspondence also explained that in August 2014, St. Kitts and Nevis had completed 2 reviews by the OECD Global Forum on Transparency and Exchange of Information for Tax Purposes, and had been rated as largely compliant. That is the gold standard, largely compliant. St. Kitts and Nevis therefore had strong objections, Mr. Speaker, to the methodology used for including countries on the blacklist. Since then, we continue to follow up and engage with high-level representatives of those countries. I must point out that while I was in the Dominican Republic at the EU CELAC meeting in October, I was able to engage all but one of the representatives, in most cases my fellow foreign ministers, of countries mostly in Eastern Europe, which still maintain national blacklists that include St. Kitts and Nevis. I again used that opportunity on the margins of that meeting to entreat them to remove us from such lists. Indeed, I should point out to the House and to the nation that whilst they promised to investigate the matter, most of them expressed surprise, shock even, that we appeared on some lists. They were not even aware that St. Kitts and Nevis had been put on a blacklist by their countries. To date, I am pleased to advise, Mr. Speaker, that Estonia, Italy, and Poland have removed us from their list due to our lobbying. We still, however, remain on national lists for Bulgaria, Croatia, Greece, Latvia, Lithuania, Portugal, and Slovenia. So we were on 10. We've so far been able to persuade 3 to remove us. We remain on 7. We continue to do the work. Participation in regional international conferences. Mr. Speaker, I am aware of the proliferate babble about frequent travel of the Minister of Foreign Affairs and their staff. I wish to make it known that travel in foreign affairs is not for pleasure. It is for purpose. And as I said in a different forum, the foreign in foreign affairs is put there for a purpose. If I could do it here in Bastia and Charlestown, you wouldn't have to say foreign affairs. It is put there for a purpose. You have to engage the world, Mr. Speaker. There are meetings and conferences that are mandatory if you are to remain engaged and abreast of decisions being made, sometimes in forums far away, that affect us. Should we remain aloof, Mr. Speaker, we would always be considered a follower and a non-participant in affairs that often affect us. Thus, I, as Minister, attended several overseas conferences and meetings this year. The Trans-Montana Forum, which focused on Africa and the South-South cooperation toward a better governance for sustainable economic and social development in Dakar, Morocco. The Atlantic Strategy Group meeting in Dakar, Senegal, which focused on economic transformation, trade and investment, governance and security challenges in the wide Atlantic. The 5th Conference in International Air Transport Cooperation and ICAO Aviation Training and Trainer Plus Global Symposium in Seoul, South Korea. The Association of Caribbean States meeting was held in Cuba, and I was pleased to attend alongside our esteemed Prime Minister. Whereafter, we journeyed to Canada to engage our country's Minister of Immigration on this vexed visa issue. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, having assumed the chair for the CDCC, I attended an ECLAC meeting in Mexico City in that capacity. Most recently, I have returned from COP22 in Marrakesh, where I was privileged to lead the country's delegation, and my attendance at all of these meetings, save the trip to Canada. Let me say that for emphasis. My attendance at all of these meetings, save and except the trip to Canada, was fully funded and at no cost to the taxpayers of St. Kitts and Nevis. In addition to those fully funded meetings, I was also privileged to attend and represent the Federation at the 9th UK Caribbean Forum in Bahamas, the OS General Assembly in Santo Domingo, our Ocean 2006 conference in Washington, D.C., where I also engaged representatives of FinCEN at the U.S. Treasury Department, the United Nations General Assembly in New York, and the EU CELAC meeting in Santo Domingo. At all of these meetings, I was able to hold bilateral meetings with foreign officials and have laid the groundwork for future interactions. Officers from my ministry participated in OECS and CARICOM meetings overseas, the 38th session of the ICAO in Montreal, and also the EU CELAC meeting. Wherever possible, Mr. Speaker, and I want to emphasize this, wherever possible, we selected meetings which were fully funded to determine attendance from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And I want to emphasize that, and so the public might be wondering, what does fully funded mean? It means that when we attend, some organization, some country, somebody other than the taxpayers of St. Kitts and Nevis are paying for your airfare, your hotel, your meals, etc. That's what we say, fully funded. I only recently returned from Dubai, where I had the pleasure of participating in belated independence celebrations and met with a number of citizens and potential investors. While there, I also signed with them an air services agreement, a double taxation agreement, and an investor protection agreement. I also held substantive and substantial meetings with senior members of the government of the UAE. Those agreements are important as we seek to get more investment from the Gulf region into St. Kitts and Nevis. Those agreements are important as we seek to get airlift from the Gulf region into St. Kitts and Nevis. We will hear more about that, Mr. Speaker, as we go. I reiterate, overseas travel for the ministry is not for pleasure seeking. We are traveling to advance our mandate to strengthen ties with members of the international community and to safeguard the interests of our citizens abroad. I'm reminded by the member for number 1 that that has been a consistent policy, that throughout all ministries we seek first for funded travel. And so that has been the standard. It's not to suggest that all travel has been funded, but certainly the majority of our travel is funded travel. And I think that's an important point to make and to keep making. Mr. Speaker, to the extent that it is relevant and in the interest always of being transparent and open with the public, I traveled 12 times this year on foreign affairs business, of which 7 of those trips were fully funded. My predecessor, foreign minister, the member opposite for Nevis 11, he traveled 13 times in 2013, journeying to different parts of the Caribbean, Sri Lanka, Panama, and Taiwan. In 2014, he traveled 12 times, journeying to different parts of the region and the world, including Abu Dhabi, Mexico, Paraguay, Turkey, New York, and Japan. I say that, Mr. Speaker, to make the point that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs demands travel, much of which is mandatory and unavoidable. St. Kitts and Nevis must engage the world, and while we wish the world to come to us, our nation must be clear that we must also travel to important meetings outside. Travel patterns in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has not changed, save that under my leadership and under the mandate from Cabinet, we seek as much as possible to obtain external funding for trips so as not to burden the St. Kitts Nevis Treasury. I will say no more on that except to say that nobody will and can accuse me or indeed any member on this side of racking up travel expenses of $500,000, $500,000 in a single year. Never happened. Never happened. Building capacity, let me move quickly. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we have exposed our staff to training. Very proud of that. This past year, several of our senior officers were nominated to participate in online courses through the Diplo Foundation based in Malta, in collaboration with the University of Malta. In February to March this year, Ms. Tuvia France, facilitated by the Trust Fund to support the participation of LDCs and SIDS in the work of the Human Rights Council, had a 1-month stint at the United Nations in Geneva, Switzerland. Ms. Chanel Simmons was a participant in the 2016 Korean Language and Cultural Program for Diplomats in South Korea. Ms. Simmons, having been selected this year as a Scheveningen Scholar, is now pursuing a master's degree in international relations in London. I want to publicly congratulate her for copying one of these hard-to-get Scheveningen scholarships. And Nevis and St. Kitts, I'm told, are doing remarkably well. Indeed, I believe one of our members here at the Deputy Clerk was also a Scheveningen Scholar. And so we're small, but as I say in Jamaica, we're Talawa. And when I speak to the British diplomats, they say they wonder what is happening. That St. Kitts and Nevis keeps winning this particular scholarship over and over. So I congratulate Ms. Simmons. She's now in London. I wish her well. Both Messrs. Hazel and Penny have had 1 week on-the-job training in Jamaica in the Protocol Division, learning best practices. Ms. Shara Maynard attended a course for junior diplomats in the Netherlands and also represented the Federation in the Chilean Cultural Immersion for CARICOM diplomats. Ms. Asha de Souza was our nominee this year to the 11th Executive Seminar for Diplomats from Latin America and the Caribbean, hosted by the Federal Foreign Office of Germany. Ms. Sonia Body was a participant in the 22nd Mexico Foreign Policy course for diplomats, and that was in Mexico.
Who is that person?
Ms. Sonia Body, former Scheveningen Scholar, and now I believe functionary in this hallowed hall.
Just wanted to record.
Yes, absolutely. Only last week, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Samuel Berridge traveled to Japan to participate in the 1-week Japan Juntos program for diplomats of Latin America and the Caribbean. We have been working, exposing our people, training. We have, this year, we even started on social media. We have a Facebook page now, trying to keep our people updated. Let me move quickly to civil aviation. In the preamble of the United Nations Charter to which our Federation subscribes, we pledge with the rest of the membership to unite our strength to maintain international peace and security. I believe we should not only pay lip service to those principles, but we should work towards them. We know as a small nation we cannot provide troops and other resources to fight the terrorists worldwide. But if there's one thing we can do to maintain international peace and security, is to secure our national borders. The Civil Aviation Department has been consistently devoting time and energy to ensure that the ICAO and other international standards, practices, and procedures are upheld at our ports. Both Mr. Royston Griffin and Mr. Othniel Jordan continue to benefit from training organized by ICAO in the areas of security and safety at our ports. Regular inspections are conducted at both the RLB and Van Samer International, with the aim of ensuring that adequate staffing is provided, access controls are in place, necessary checks are done in the interest of security. Over 200 persons have been trained by our department. The various entities that have benefited include SCASPA, NASPA, PPC, Cajola Cristada, Department of Health, the General Post Office, and KDP Amerijet. Courses offered included aviation basic training, airline and cargo security, and access control. I wish publicly, Mr. Speaker, to commend the two-member team of the department, Messrs. Griffin and Jordan, who go beyond the call of duty to ensure that measures are implemented, mechanisms are in place, and proper and constant monitoring is done to maintain security. It warms my heart when I get calls from the TSA asking for Mr. Griffin in particular to be made available to assist other islands in the Caribbean with their airport security needs. Tells me, again, that we're providing leadership in the region. Let me use this forum to appeal to all of our officers of the ports to be vigilant, dedicated, and committed to their tasks. They have a unique and grave responsibility, and it is my hope that all stakeholders will cooperate with the Civil Aviation Department as they continue to perform. We also approved, Mr. Speaker, code-sharing arrangements between Delta and Virgin Atlantic, Delta and Seabourn Airlines. Further, as a tourist destination, Airlift, as we know, is vitally important. At the ministry, we are aware of this, and that is why this year we renewed 8 landing permits: Mountaineer Cargo, Air Canada, Amerijet, Kingfisher, Air Sunshine, and Liat, Hyannis Air Services doing business as Cape Air, and to a new one, VI Air Link. The department also issued letters designated Anguilla Air and Winair as suitable air carriers. During the coming year, while continuing to improve our security program, we'll also be focusing on the safety aspect of civil aviation. We believe that we can aspire to be the best in the region in port security, and we shall strive to achieve this by making a start to this in the new year. Mr. Speaker, I have spoken already about our engagements with Canada and the US. I need not repeat that. The expansion of our representation worldwide. Due to limited resources, we have taken a view, Mr. Speaker, that we should appoint more honorary consuls after proper vetting and after they've satisfied our requirements in capitals throughout the world. Appointing honorary consuls, so the public understands, is useful because these tend to be individuals of some substance in their own countries, and we appoint them at no cost to St. Kitts and Nevis. And so we hope to expand the number of those. In 2016, we appointed honorary consuls to Bermuda and to Vietnam. Others have also been pending. We also, in 2016, appointed an honorary consul to Milan, Italy. We have also just yesterday, I believe, received word that our honorary consul in Germany, that his remit has been expanded to all of Germany. I shall further, in the new year, consider appointing honorary consuls to strategic regions in Latin America, Asia, Africa, and the Middle East. We also, Mr. Speaker, intend to appoint non-resident ambassadors to key areas of the world. Let me spend a moment, Mr. Speaker, to talk about cultural diplomacy. I firmly believe that investing in our human resources is one of the greatest investments we can make. That is why, in my engagements with counterparts, both in multilateral and bilateral meetings, when they visit us and when we visit them, I keep stressing training, opportunities for our students abroad. I'm aware that some of our students have some concerns about traveling to places perceived to be too far. I get that complaint all the time. But I'm asking them and their families, Mr. Speaker, when you think that you can access a free education, F-R-E-E, free education, whether it be in Georgia, in Morocco, in Switzerland, in New Zealand, in Taiwan, in Israel, in Cuba, wherever it may be, it is F-R-E-E, free. And it allows you to get an education at no cost to yourself and your family. Compare yourself then with those students whose families have to go mortgage a house, go to the bank, development bank or otherwise, and come back and have tremendous student loans to pay. I'm asking our people to take advantage. This year alone, we were able to persuade the government of Morocco to offer 20 scholarships to the youth of St. Kitts and Nevis, and I'm sad to report that the uptake has not been what we would like. Most of these scholarships have been offered, and when I go back, they said to me, but you said you wanted training, and we offered you free training, and you have not taken up the offer. So it then makes us look bad as well. So I'm asking, please, our young people out there, those coming out of sixth form, those who are out there looking for some training, your parents, please, I am beseeching you, take advantage of these opportunities. We continue, Mr. Speaker, to do our very best to ensure that our children are exposed, our young people are exposed. We also intend to engage. We have embassies here, Brazil, Cuba, Taiwan, Venezuela. Majority of our population, they may know that football is a favorite pastime of Brazilians. They know former President Fidel of Cuba. They know about the embargo. But I often wonder, Mr. Speaker, if we in St. Kitts and Nevis appreciate the extent to which we are interconnected with these countries. Brazil, for example, boasts the largest number of members of the African diaspora. Most from the African diaspora. Their DNA is our DNA. Several of our ancestors went to places like Cuba and the Dominican Republic. And you know, Mr. Speaker, I want to share with you and with the nation that at the closing session of the 7th Summit of the Association of Caribbean States held in Cuba earlier this year, President Raul Castro Ruz, in his remarks, stated this: first of all, and I quote, first of all, we would like to convey our sympathy and solidarity to the family of the great boxing champion Muhammad Ali, to the American people, and particularly to their African-American community, whose rights he always defended, and to the international sports community. We shall never forget his chivalry and ethic, his rejection of war and defense of peace, his respect for friendship with Comrade Fidel, and with that great Cuban and Caribbean boxer, Teofilo Stevenson, the son of a citizen of St. Vincent and the grandson of a citizen of St. Kitts and Nevis on his mother's side. Yes. That is the president of Cuba speaking to the death of Muhammad Ali, yes, and recognizing formally Teofilo Stevenson, great Cuban boxer, yes, the son of a citizen of St. Vincent, yes, and the grandson of a citizen of St. Kitts and Nevis on his mother's side. They're saying it from Newtown. Everybody good is from Newtown. So, Minister for number 1, I will give him that. In light of this, the ministry will endeavor to make the populace more aware of these cultures and interconnectivities. We shall continue to work with the resident Taiwanese embassy to expose more nationals to that culture, and we shall do the same with Venezuela. But, Mr. Speaker, that is not all we're planning to do now. No. We have already notified some embassies of our partner countries in the region. We expect that we shall be able to promote some culinary dishes, exhibit some artwork, invite performers. We want our people to understand that I may come and go, the ambassador may come and go. At the end of the day, it's the people-to-people connections. That is where real diplomacy happens. Too often, we receive offers that can bring us closer together, such as scholarships I referred to earlier, Mr. Speaker, and we fail to take advantage. If I'm coming back to that, it's because I feel quite passionate about it. I myself benefited from scholarships. That's how I was able to get an education. And I'm encouraging our young people again to seize these opportunities. Don't let them go begging. Don't be going around forcing your parents and your friends and your loved ones to incur high debt to educate you when you could get it for free. Seize the opportunity. Imagine, Mr. President, going to school in a place like Morocco. You learn the culture, you learn Arabic, yes, you learn French, yes, you have your English, and who knows, you may even find a Moroccan wife or husband.
Make it more marketable.
Marketable.
And you could be a chic.
I don't know about that. Because I've been accused of wearing all kind of Arab garb. And then when the evidence surfaces, we see some dressed up like Sikhs, just like Indians. So, Mr. Speaker, this is what we're working on. We're rebranding our missions. We're asking them that in 2017 we need to accomplish even more. And we are continually assessing our staff to allow for placements that provide a better fit as we seek to promote the Federation abroad. Mr. Speaker, in my waning minutes, drones. I want to say a quick word. How much time? My time is up? I just want to be on the right side of the speaker. Well, I'm just wondering.
I'm told you have 1 more minute.
Mr. Speaker, will this be an opportune time to ask for an additional, I would ask for half hour, although I won't need half hour, but I would ask for that, just in case.
The question is that the honourable member is requesting an additional half an hour. Those in favour? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I want to say a word about drones. It may sound simple, but I believe all of us know. See these, what they call them, unmanned drones in the air flying over. You see them at carnival, you see them at political meetings, large gatherings. In fact, I think, Mr. Speaker, that we had a bit of a concern recently because someone came off on the cruise ships, docked at Port Zante, with a big nap, bag on their back. And they came, set up their drone right there at Port Zante and put it into the air. No permission, no anything. We have a situation, and I will make it a little personal, because my own wife told me that she was at home on the porch and she heard this buzzing sound. Looked up only to realize that the drone was above her head. What they're looking for, I don't know. I hope they didn't find it. But they were there. I myself, Mr. Speaker, have gone out with a colleague who has a drone. And he put that drone so high in the sky that you could no longer hear it. And yet the quality of photos and of video was excellent. It tells me, therefore, that these that are now being used by some as recreational tools, I'm pretty sure this is Christmas coming. Some people might be getting drones for their Christmas because they're not that expensive anymore. I'm told now you could get one maybe for $2,000, $2,500 US, which for some is within the range. Some are using it for commercial purposes, but others are using it now for purely pleasure purposes. It can be a tool for great mischief,
Yes,
Mr. Speaker.
I agree.
It can be a tool for great mischief. And so we have decided that we must come up with some rules and regulations affecting the use of drones. For example, Mr. Speaker, it may sound simple, but God forbid that a drone is mounted too close to RLB or Van Samry.
You understand?
You could lead to catastrophe
Yes.
if somehow there's any collision with an aircraft. So it is not purely academic. The issues of privacy for people. And so we must now need to look at it critically. And I'm very pleased that we have already looked at what is happening in places like Singapore and other countries. And we have cobbled together something. And we have sent to the Honorable Attorney General and asked for the guidance of his team. And I would ask that my colleagues support this initiative when it comes, because it is an important initiative. But again, Mr. Speaker, demonstrative of our effort to keep up with the times. Realizing that we are in a new age, technologically advanced age, and we must, as a government, be responsive. And so for those out there who have drones already, we're asking you to be responsible and not to have them flying anywhere close to any airport or any flight path. We're also asking you, please, don't use your drone to mind your neighbor's business. Be responsible. In the fullness of time, I'm sure our security forces might want also to look at that, member for number 8, to determine whether or not there are any benefits to be derived. But it is a serious matter, and I want the House and the nation to know that we're looking at it seriously. We shall, next year, complement the civil aviation staff with a safety officer. I will also pursue the signing of loan agreement with TSA and the signing of the Federal Air Marshal Agreement, all toward the achievement of safer skies. And just a word, half a minute on the loan agreement with TSA. TSA is saying to us, TSA in the US, that they have equipment that they can lend to us for screening and other purposes that we can use at RLB and at Van Samry International, all in the interest of safety. And so we are pursuing that with them. I want to pledge to the staff, hard-working staff of the ministry, that we will continue to explore every opportunity for their professional development as we seek to advance the ministry's mandates. Protocol training. Mr. Speaker, you know we get visits from people from all over the world. We hold conferences. And of course, protocol is always a critical component of that. The ministry will join with the Institute of International Relations to conduct protocol training for its staff and other ministries, including the Nevis Island Administration. Facilitators will be sourced from the Diplomatic Academy based in Trinidad and Tobago. And I want to just pause for a moment to say a word there. that most of what we do in the atmosphere and within the context and the rubric of unity involves the island of Nevis. I am from Nevis. I have never been shy to shout that to the mountaintop. And I'm very pleased that I lead a ministry and a team that for the first time, Mr. Speaker, is truly national in terms of its outlook and approach. So when we have training, as we say in Nevis, Tut, Mun, Sam and Bagay, across the entire country are exposed to the training. When we talk about filling vacancies, we're talking about diplomats being deployed, we're looking for the best citizen. Not the Kittian citizen. There's no such thing. Not the Kittian person or the Nivision person. We're looking for the best citizen of the country to fill those positions. And that is a sea change from what was. I have said elsewhere, and I will say it in this house, that it took 32 years of independence and a team unity government for Nevis to get its first diplomat. Yeah. 32 years. God bless unity. Huh? We couldn't even get a state service in Nevis, so we were a diplomat. Huh? That is the reality, that is the legacy. So sometimes when you hear them talk, huh? So Speaker, I'm winding down. As I attempt to close my contribution, I want to just address for a minute, you see, some information that my brother from number 4 took from me and spoke to. I want to go back to it for a minute, because I have been, in my own time here in public life, the recipient of far too much negative attention, in my view. Lord, they abuse me from morning to night. Every radio station they abuse, and they find all manner of things to say. Abuse. Oh, abuse, I think, is a word in common colloquialism, I'm told. Similar to comfortability. So I've been assaulted and assailed. The highways and byways of the country, all kinds of things are said about not just me, but others as well. Before I get there, let me say that in her presentation, the Honorable Senator spoke to, the Honorable Senator Phipps, forgive me, spoke to Ministry of Health and our commitment to organizations such as PAHO and WHO. I want to record for the nation that through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Aviation, St. Kitts and Nevis has fulfilled all of its obligations to the following organizations in 2016 in the form of quota contributions, and contributions to those organizations have been budgeted for 2017. So we are up to date with CARICOM, OECS, OAS, ACS, Commonwealth, United Nations, Master Capital, United Nations International Tribunals, United Nations Peacekeeping, United Nations Regular Budget, African, Caribbean, and Pacific Group of States, and the International Civil Aviation Organization. I'm very proud of that, and I think the nation should understand we are a responsible government. And the reason we are proud is because sadly sometimes when you go to these meetings and they produce the lists,
Yes.
it's really embarrassing to see. Sometimes some of our close neighbors haven't paid for years. So I'm very happy to report that.
Procurement of drugs, it affects.
It affects everything. Now, you know, Mr. Speaker, going back to the attacks that have come, they say when you get involved in politics, you expect some, and so it's par for the course, perhaps. But I have always found that if you attack me and your hands are clean, then the attack is warranted. At least you come from a moral position. But if you attack me when your own hands are unclean, then it suggests to me that you have no moral authority to speak to some of these matters. I've heard a member for number 2, the one who now answers to the sobriquet, rah, rah, rah. She has come time and time again. In the public domain, she has whipped up a frenzy talking about 2 salaries. I get paid, as far as I know, what the law provides for me to be paid. If anybody says that the member for number 9 is stealing something, then let them come with the evidence, and I will be glad to beg the nation pardon and give it back.
Yeah.
But the reality is, I am paid what the law mandates that I be paid. Indeed, I would say this, that if the members opposite, who sat in government for 20 years and had every opportunity to change the law, never did so. In fact, the Constitution, which they have maligned time and time again, they never so much as changed a comma in that Constitution in 20 years. So what really is the noise all about? This cacophony of sound that assails our eardrums on a daily basis from various rostrums around the country, from freedom to bondage. Cacophony. It is sometimes a sound that interrupts the level of your comfortability. So when, Mr. Speaker, this constant noise, every day, every week, noise, no ideas, nothing being advanced to advance the country. Just noise and everything that they now know to be wrong. They didn't fix it up.
No.
Didn't fix. So I hear the member from number 2, rah, talking and talking about double salary and I said, but wait. The nation should know, harken back to the documentation, which we'll provide to you, Mr. Speaker, that whilst a member in the cabinet of the Labour NRP administration, whilst led by the member from number 6,
Yes.
who now comes talking about who gets what from government, that the member for number 2, her law firm, was undertaking work for government institutions.
Yes.
While she was a cabinet member,
Right. What great.
sorry she's not here, undertaking work for the very government whose policy is fixed by the cabinet.
Sure.
And not just ordinary work, not pro bono work, not free work, big work. The document here says that in a 5-year period, her law firm collected $2,960,000. Man, forget about that. Call it $3 million.
$3 million. Yes.
$3 million. That is averaging $600,000 a year. That is what the member for number 2 law firm collect. And they weren't happy with that, When they lose the government in 2015, they got lawyers to write to say, let me get the figure here. They get lawyers to write to say that they were owed an additional $119,524.50.
Yes.
How much salary she called it?
Right? So when they're talking about who getting this and who getting that, the minister for number 2 was sitting in a cabinet
Yes.
and was being paid as a minister, full minister in this country. A law firm was collecting $3 million.
$300,000. Right.
How can I imagine tell me with $1,300,000?
$300,000.
$3 million. And still, when they lost government, they still write into the government and say, listen, 119,000 more. Then you must pay us. But Mr. Speaker, I suppose that payment as a minister and payment of $3 million plus as a lawyer at one and the same time is not a double salary. Constitutes double pay though. And it's a blatant abuse of power. Blatant abuse of power. Naked. They talk about nepotism. Naked conflict.
Yes.
Naked conflict. I wonder if the leader of the opposition was not aware that his cabinet colleague was drinking from the public trough. and at the same time had her head deep. She was using another snout like some, she was using a $3 million hose. Deep. I wanted to tell the nation she has run away from this place where she ought to have come to speak. Yes. So let her go to wherever she feels comfortable and explain to the nation how her firm managed to collect $3 million in fees when she was a cabinet member. Let she explain that. We need to know. We need to know. And while I'm on the topic of them abandoning the house, imagine they say, Mr. Speaker, that they are standing in solidarity with a man who's neither elected nor electable. A man who in his commentary has offered little to the debate in the country. They say they're standing in solidarity. But the reason I say he's neither elected nor electable is relevant. Because that means he no got no constituency to stand up to talk for. They do. They do. So he could come in here and get thrown out every day, all day. They have people who sent them to this parliament to represent them. And I want to know, what has happened to my good friend from number 11? The last time I checked, he wasn't Labour, he was NRP.
Last time I checked too.
So what you mean? He got to stay with too? Huh? He got to stay with too? So when the member from number 6 say he's the world boss, he really mean it? Huh? So what happened to the people of St. James and St. Thomas's in Nevis? Where's their representative? He stay with too. Boycotting, it looks like, in support of foolishness. Huh? Mr. Speaker, you may throw me out one day too, I don't know. But what I do know is that the man who was thrown out yesterday and was told that he's gone for the day, that means he could have come back today, he don't represent a soul. Nobody vote for he. And those that people voted for have opted to stay away. But you know, I know why, because they have nothing to say. This is Christmas time and this budget has brought glad tidings to the people of the country. So they have nothing to say. We were exposed to 3 hours of vacuous prose. No rhyme, no reason to what the leader of the opposition came to say. Making points which were non-points. Seeking to make arguments that was simply, what they call it, they put that in the out-of-order bundle, of no relevance. And it appears to me that the rest had nothing to say. But Mr. Speaker, it wasn't only the member from number 2, you know. Because what is happening now, as evidenced by the fact that the member from number 11 from the NRP, if Labour said boycott, he got to boycott too. The same thing now is happening in Nevis. And whatever they say down here, in Nevis, the NRP parrots what they say. And so in Nevis now, they have to talk to. Talking about who getting what money, who getting double salary. Huh? So there's a fellow who ran against me some time ago. He calls himself Roberto, because I suppose the name El Hansville that his mother gave him is not an attractive name. So I was surprised that I'm looking here at some monies paid out by the federal government to private lawyers for work undertaken in the court on behalf of those charged with criminal offenses. Now the records would show, Mr. Speaker, that this gentleman, who's a lawyer, elected representative for the people of St. Paul's, locally in Nevis, that he collects whatever emoluments are due to him in that capacity. But when they jumped into bed with the member from number 6, in the lead up to the last elections, when the force of unity was being felt throughout the country, they run up to Nevis, down Pinnies, no lights, dark night, sign a document down there, says oneness document they sign. Not a soul know what they signed. They don't even know what they signed. And everybody hold up hand like comrades of old. We've never seen the document. Never. It was signed in the dead of night. And in response to unity, they all rushed to say they have unity too. In fact, they said they have not a real unity. But you know what happened? When the government in Nevis changed in 2013, we met some people there whom we dubbed hangers on. They had all kinds of ridiculous contracts, offered nothing. You had people who couldn't advise themselves, who were being paid to advise the government. And we had to do what their contracts allowed us to do. So where their contract said that they could be let go on 3 months' notice, paid, whatever, we did that. We never violated. And I think it is testimony to that, that not one of them has gone to the court over this. And what happened? Because of the relationship now that they'd forged with Labour, all of them who were at the trough in Nevis and who had been told by the people of Nevis that we no longer wanted you, all of a sudden every morning they take a boat and they reach St. Kitts. And they were put on a payroll by the member for number 6. And he, Hector, I'm going to call his name, was one of them. Because he came over here and was given a job in St. Kitts, the record show, as the advisor to Labour, the Labour Department, and collected for that a full salary. Man, he get more than 2 pay, that's the point I'm trying to make. He getting his money in Nevis that is due to him as an elected member. In the NIA, that money comes from the Nevis Treasury. He was given a job by the member for number 6. You know this is McWalk. St. Kitts Treasury now. He get that, say he's advisor to Labour. But look at what the records show, to my surprise. While he's collecting money in 2014, as the advisor to Labour, full-time position, he's also out there collecting money from the government for private work that he's undertaking as a lawyer. Huh?
Double dip, triple dip.
That's what they call triple dip. Doing work in the court and sending his bill to the government. Huh? That is what is happening. So when you hear them with the noise and all the talk about who getting what and this and that and the other, you just scratch the surface a bit. You start to realize what was happening. It was a free-for-all in the country. A free-for-all. Mr. Speaker, I'm sure the Attorney General, when he comes, last I checked with him before I started speaking, he was still preparing. So I'm certain that he will have quite a bit to add. But I'm certain when he comes that he will deal with some of these issues in greater detail. I will only say this. I will only say this. That people in our country now seem, to my mind, to take to the airwaves and to social media, especially Facebook, for everything. You get up in the morning, you have a headache, you go on Facebook, you say, Lord, I got a headache today. The world has changed. That is now our new reality. And what I have found is a lot of people, when they cannot get their way, and if I upset anybody, forgive me, but I will say, when they cannot get their way, when things are not as they would wish it to be, because they're now dealing with a responsible government, they jump on any available medium, radio, TV, internet, and they start to bash. They start to say, oh, they ain't get this and they ain't get that. It's not for me to put the facts on the table now. But what I will say from this rostrum is that I have an English tongue in my head and I know how to use it. Once the evidence is available, the evidence will be made public, so that people can understand that a lot of the noise you hear out there is not people. It's not people who have any love of country. It's people who are seeking to advance a personal agenda. That is why I've taken the time, as I close, to speak to that. And I'm sure the AG we'll touch it some more. Mr. Speaker, let me then conclude by going back to where I started, commending the Honorable Prime Minister and Minister of Finance and the Ministry of Finance and their team for their diligence in producing a budget that has as its central aim the interests of all of our citizens and an abiding theme of hope for all. I commit my firm support to the 2017 budget and to ensuring that the financial resources allocated to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Aviation will be utilized in the fulfillment of our mandate. I would want to wish this bill safe passage through this honorable House. Mr. Speaker, before I sit, I believe I'm still within my half hour. I want to commend our new senator. On record, I wasn't here when she was sworn in. I apologize for that. I was unavoidably overseas. But I want to commend her on her maiden speech in a budget that she would have made yesterday, and for the poise that she brings in the position of Deputy Speaker. Not to suggest there was not poise before, but clearly she has brought, I think, a lighter touch which would augur well for the nation and for the House. Mr. Speaker, I also would want to point out that as I commend our new senator for her presence here, that our new deputy clerk is also female. So there's a certain, how would you call it? Womanizing is not the word. Femalizing? Softening. But what it is, it means that under unity government, this parliament is slowly moving to a proper reflection of the nation and giving women their rightful role, Mr. Speaker, in the affairs of the country. This is where I'm told gender balance is the language. Gender balance. So this is where we make laws and we feel, Mr. Speaker, that this representation in this House should reflect the representation in the nation. And so we welcome the new senator, we welcome our new deputy clerk, and of course we have, of course, our stalwart senator who has been with us for some time and cabinet member. All females, and may more come as we go. And I hope to see some involved in the electoral process. Unlike some who like to come here and make noise and can't put their name on a ballot paper, that some of these ladies will show them how it is done. So that is my hope and my expectation. So, Speaker, permit me, as I close then, to wish the people of number 9 who have sent me here a wonderful Christmas. The people of St. John's and St. Paul's have been with me now for the past decade, and I am truly grateful for their continued commitment and support. They are with me, Mr. Speaker, and I shall be forever committed to them. I wish the same wonderful Christmas greetings to the people of the wider St. Kitts and Nevis community. May the grace of God be with us all over the Christmas and Carnival season. Since I believe that a lot of people are listening in St. Kitts and Nevis, let me also use this opportunity to invite all the children of St. John's and St. Paul's, my beloved District 9, Nevis, let me say St. Paul's, Nevis, to join Mr. Spencer Brand and me for our 10th annual Christmas party at occasions which will be at Pinny's from 1 to 5 p.m. on Sunday, the 18th of December. Our aim, Mr. Speaker, is service. And each year, for the past decade, we give back to our families in our constituency. To God be the glory. I would, Mr. Speaker, want to wish this budget safe passage. It was one of the best that we have seen in this August Assembly. And I wish the deliberations that are to come, they may be wise and they may bring the normal, sober reflection on the affairs of the state that we expect from this team unity government. I am indeed delighted to have been given this opportunity, Mr. Speaker, and I thank you and I thank all for your forbearance and for listening to me over this past nearly 2 hours. With those few words, I would want Mr. Speaker to wish the bill safe passage. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member for Nevis 9. We will now move to a suspension of the proceedings. This Honourable House stands suspended until 3 p.m. this afternoon.